Coming up on today's Next Fan Up podcast.
Vanilla ice cream is awesome. So we will not be slandering vanilla ice cream. They need to sacrifice a lamb, throw a virgin in the volcano, something. I don't know what the heck, but...
Sounds like a good weekend in Kevin's house.
Yeah, that might be naive of me or just flat out stupid.
Oh, we got a full round table. It's a fun one and a day early. Here we go.
That's how we start. Yeah, baby.
32 super fans.
Where do the reports come from? Did you get an initial?
One pod Vader.
That's football.
Every angle of the NFL covered.
All that kind of stuff, I get it.
This,
no question about it,
is Next Fan Up.
We will unleash hell here in December.
Hello and welcome to the final regular season edition of the Next Fan Up podcast. That's right, only regular season edition. We will still be here throughout the playoffs, twice a week. The Tuesday podcast will continue. The Thursday previews will continue. We'll probably be back to Thursdays too during the playoffs. The only time we may not have two would be that week in between the championship games and the Super Bowl. But we got a month before we're even at that particular point in time. So let me bring in the guys who are here with me today, and it's the same guys you've heard from all season. It is Neil, our Washington football team superfan across the pond. Hello, Neil.
Hey, guys. Season's greetings and all the rest of it. I thought Kevin was turning up today. I'm a bit disappointed. He was
Thank God he's not. If we want this done in an hour and a half, that would never happen.
But it's like the NFC East and Christmas. They all kind of go together, don't they? Traditional things.
I suppose so. James is our Eagles superfan. Hello, James.
Hey, Pi. Hey, guys. I'm eagerly looking forward to next season.
Aren't we all? Or at least two of us are. The other two still have some playoff hopes because that other one is our good friend Doc, the award-winning gridiron chef, who is a super fan of the New Orleans Saints. I haven't really called you a super fan all season, but
yeah.
You really are.
They're my life, brother. They're my food and the Saints. So, yeah, greeting salutations to the entire Next Fan Up Nation.
Jay, I'm going to break this news to you gently, Jay, but as a Patriots fan and from having watched your game this week, I would say I'd probably go for the year after to look forward to. I wouldn't go for next year. I think that might be a year too soon at least.
I have a lot to say about the Patriots. A lot of it I've said already on this podcast numerous times before the season even began. But also, once again, another proud fatherly moment as my son helped me do some research for today's podcast. So we got a long time to get there because normally, as you all know, our format is to go game by game by the pigskin pick'em chronological from 1 p.m. all the way to Sunday Night Football. And this week there is no Monday Night Football game. This week we're going to change it up a little bit. We're still going to go chronological, but we are moving the games that have zero playoff implications to the end of the previews. Because I know all you people here who care about the playoffs only want to hear about your playoff team. So we're going to put the playoffs first. There are 5 games, which, I mean, is to the NFL's credit. There are only 5 games that have zero impact on the outcome of the 2020 season other than draft order.
I'm presuming that's got a big reason to do with the extra playoff spot. Is that the reason for that?
I'm sure there is. When we get into the totally useless stats, I'm going to bring that up. Before I do, Neil, you brought up Doc's picks from last week. My picks last week was not very good. Only 9 correct straight up. The power rankings had 10. I only got 4 correct versus Vegas. So Vegas said, "Oh, you thought you were doing well, huh? Put you back in your place." But speaking of places, a place that James is not used to, once again, the top spot in the picks, along with Catherine Magruder, that Washington football fan, number 1 pickers with 12 correct, James.
So, yeah, it would have been 11 if I didn't get this news on Sunday morning that Washington's quarterback was going to be Dwayne Haskins. I had to change that immediately.
You did mention, to your credit, that it would depend on which quarterback started for you when we did the preview of that game.
How does first place feel, James? Because, obviously you're usually last place, so it must be changed.
I won a couple of weeks earlier in the season, and then it pretty much just fell off a cliff.
No, we're talking about you, not your team.
Let's get on with the schedule, please.
Jay's
Did we
disappeared.
lose Pod?
Yeah.
No.
Well,
I'm
it's
still
about
here.
time. We've had to deal with him for 16 weeks. Finally, we've got rid of him, James. Let's go nuts. Did you guys watch the Patriots? I mean, that was just an embarrassment. I saw Bill Belichick was on the phone to Jay at some point. Did you see that?
All right. Where did you guys lose me, by the way? What was the last thing you heard?
We were talking about your Pats.
I think your prediction of the Pats doing well in week 1, I lost you. You lost me at that point.
Poe, we were talking about the Pats. Don't you feel that it's kind of like a high school bully thing? 20 years of wedgies. And he went back to the high school reunion and said, pile it on. So I don't know if this was a changing of the guard. Did you feel so?
Well,
Finally?
again, we can get into all of this when we talk about the Patriots game, but I did mention on the preview show that the Bills needed to come in and kick the bully while he's down and kick him hard. And that's exactly what the Bills did. So I was very impressed with the Bills. Congratulations to them. Changing of the guard, not until Bill Belichick is out of the division will I say there's a changing of the guard.
We'll see when Garoppolo's behind center next year, and you got all your players back.
Coach now, isn't he? I mean, he's back to being Mr. Average. He doesn't have his Hall of Fame quarterback.
We shall see. All right. Special thanks.
I think we're just seeing it, aren't we?
No, that was 1 year. 1 year with COVID going on and opt outs and all sorts of things. I'm not wasting my Patriots talk at the beginning of the show. We will talk Patriots when it's time to talk.
We just want you to cry. Just cry and then we'll stop.
Special thanks to Matt Verderami of Fansided for doing all the research for me. 48 stats that will define the games is a must read for us stat nerds. So thank you, Matt. He did not do an article last week, which is probably why I did so poorly in the pigskin pick'em. So,
blame somebody else.
Yeah, well, that's what I do best. But thank you, Matt. Appreciate it. We'll be using a lot of your stats this week. But speaking of stats, it's time for some totally useless ones.
Mm-hmm.
Huge Jerry Jones. A lot of these will have to do with the 2020 season. 7 playoff berths are still to be claimed. That's the most available playoff berths entering the season's final weekend in 31 years, since there are also 7 in 1989. A total of 18 games, more than half of the league, remain in contention. 18 teams, more than half of the league, remain in contention for the Super Bowl in Tampa. The NFL hasn't had more than 18 teams in contention entering the final week since there were 20 in 2006. Now, I would say that this is slightly disingenuous, considering what they're really talking about is seeding spots in the playoffs, not really playoff spots, because there's really only 2 teams currently on the outside looking in if we don't want to count the mess that's going on in the NFC least.
Hey.
So to say that, there are 20 teams in it, well, not really. It's not really accurate to say that. That, by the way, those are straight from the NFL press release. So, of course, they're going to make it look as great as they possibly can. As I said, to the NFL credit, despite the fact that we're all against expanding the playoffs, there is going to be at least one team with at least 10 victories that will be out of the playoffs this season. Could you imagine if we didn't have the extra playoff team this year? There would have been 2 of those teams, which means it would have been a guaranteed expansion next year.
Win your division. That's all I got to say. Stop counting on the wild card. Actually win your division. You won't have to worry about this.
Jay, do you know how bad it is for the Patriots? I'll give you a good stat. It's so bad for the Patriots that right now they wouldn't even be leading the NFC East.
You are wasting your good Patriots conversation.
I've got
plenty of time. Plenty of time for that. This season, there have been 42 games in which a team has overcome a deficit of at least 10 points to win, the most through Week 16 in NFL history. The single-season NFL record is 43, which happened in both 2013 and 2014. So can we get at least 1, if not 2 games of that? That would be kind of nice to have a nice new record.
Well, speaking here for the Philadelphia Eagles, they're responsible for at least 5 of those this year alone.
There also have been 9 games in which a team has overcome a deficit of at least 17 points to win, trailing only the 2011 season, which featured 11 games for the most ever in a single season. So we definitely need at least 2 or 3 of those types of games. I think that's probably too much to ask at this particular.
Yeah, the Eagles contributed 2 of those as well.
Oh, there you go. All right. There were some single season NFL records to highlight. 2 fell last week, and at least 2 more are likely to fall this week. Buffalo wide receiver Stephon Diggs caught an 18-yard touchdown pass from Josh Allen to give the NFL 1,372 touchdowns this season and break the single season league record of 1,371 touchdowns in 2018. Stephon Diggs leads the NFL in both receptions and receiving yards, which is the first time a Bills wide receiver has ever done that. The previous
wait. Hold on. James Lofton, Andre Reed, Don Beebe.
Nope. As a matter of fact, the previous leader of receptions for the Bills was Eric Moulds.
Wow.
Yep.
Yeah. The total number of NFL touchdowns this season is 1,373. Last week, New Orleans running back Alvin Kamara kicked off the weekend by tying an NFL single game record with 6 rushing touchdowns. Taysom Hill vultured one of the possible 7 he could have had. NFL teams went on to break the 41-year-old league record for rushing touchdowns in a season. The total is 494 entering week 17. The single season league record was 487 in 1979. So funny that the league is not only getting more touchdowns, but also getting more rushing touchdowns. That's not the way it was supposed to work. I thought this was a passing league.
It needs to go back to a running league. Some of these quarterbacks are grossly overrated.
I get a balance. Just give us a balance. It's been so pro-pass for so long.
NFL teams have scored 11,854 points through 16 weeks. The record is 11,985. So that one is most likely going to be broken. I guarantee there will be more than, at least more than 100 points. And 100 points would break the record as it is. So there you go. NFL teams have scored 812 passing touchdowns through 16 weeks. The single season league record is 847. So will there be more than 35 touchdowns in total in week 17?
Yes.
Yeah.
There you go. So that
I got one more superlative stat for you, Pod.
All right.
More in the 2020 fall season, more caloric intake per game on average than in the history of the NFL, because we've been at home. More calories consumed every Sunday, including me, because I just took today's recipe inspired chocolate, peanut butter, banana bread out of the oven, and this house smells like Willy Wonka.
Oh,
yeah. Good for New Year's Eve or good for any Sunday. My most requested dessert recipe is chocolate, peanut butter, banana wontons. Have I ever done this one with you, Pod?
No.
Oh, they're tremendous. Most requested. So, real simple. It's just a no cooking guide. James, you listening?
Oh yeah.
All right. You bite into these things, you'll call me right after. And of course, it's great on Sunday. Take a wonton wrapper, wet it around the outside. Smear of peanut butter, little slice of banana, put a Hershey's Kiss right on top of that banana, and then just fold it up like a wonton. Use a YouTube video if you have to. Fry it for 1 minute, top it with powdered sugar. Here's the sensation you get with a cold one. You crunch, bite into a crispy wonton, and then that chocolate, peanut butter, banana oozes out. It is a phenomenal bite of food. And I say that because it is my most requested recipe around the holidays and bowl time. Chocolate, peanut butter, banana wontons. And I just did a chocolate, peanut butter, banana bread. took it out of the oven while we were in our first couple minutes of this podcast. So I'll be publishing that too. I put the same flavors into a banana bread. So yeah, there you go. I'll send you the recipe this afternoon. So.
Sounds amazing. You can reach us, nextfanup@gmail.com. You can tweet us at NFU Podcast, facebook.com/NFU Podcast. Of course, if you're going to play some more fantasy, some daily fantasy, why not try thrivefantasy.com? You can get the app on the Apple Play Store, the Google Play Store, whatever. I don't know. You know where to get the app. You know how to get an app. thrivefantasy.com. They do over-under prop bets. The better you do, the more money you could possibly make. And if you use our promo code NEXTFANUP, we're going to pay you double of what you deposit, up to $50. It's got to be $20 minimum, up to $50. NEXTFANUP. Use that promo code and go have some fun. I'll be happy to know that I either A, gave you a free bet, or B, was responsible for 50% of your betting. So there you go.
Well, Jake, as an objective observer here, I would say that was a magnificent stat. You should do stats more often. You're the Antonio Brown of stats, whereas Jay is more the Enkeel Harry of stats.
Oh, come on. All
Just Lydia's bunny punches. Holy moly, Neil. Jeez.
Seriously. I mean, that one goes deep, too. I mean, that one's not just
Jay's team's been giving the wedgies for 20 years. I mean, let it just, we'll get after it. So.
All right. Speaking of getting after
Never too soon to start.
Let's kick it off on Sunday, shall we?
Jay, one more stat. Are you going to mention the Travis Kelce stat when you get the Kansas City game, or no?
No, probably not. What's the Travis Kelce stat?
Well, he broke the NFL record for single season receiving yards by a tight end.
Whatever.
Tremendous stat.
Yeah, the Chiefs game has nothing riding on it. Next.
George Kittle had it. Who cares? Yeah. Didn't break a Patriots record, Neil. So I knew where you were going with that.
It didn't. No, I
trying to needle me with tight end talk, and no.
I think Gronkowski's about fourth on the list. Is he? He had a 1,300-yard season at one point, something like that.
Miami Dolphins are at the Buffalo Bills. These are two teams in the AFC East that we're going to start with. No. Ladies and gentlemen, we have now been joined by Cowboy superfan Kevin.
No, we haven't.
From Prison Zone 6.
Oh, God, he's really here.
Yeah.
I'm really here. I'm sorry. What have I missed for the last 1.5 months?
Everything. Season's over. Podcast is done. See you next week.
Oh, God.
All right.
I've already come to terms with this season, but I don't even care if we win the division or not. It's been a joyous season over here.
Kevin, it's great to hear from you. As you know, I've been committing murder for you on a weekly basis with those guys who have the audacity to unfollow you on Twitter. I've been dealing with them week in, week out, so you're welcome.
Neil, I do appreciate it. I don't know why Twitter posts that to my account. It's very embarrassing, but I appreciate you liking every time and commenting on it anytime.
Finding new ways to commit murder has been strangely satisfying.
I want to ask, but I really don't. So
no, you don't.
Yeah.
Neil and I have a special connection over Twitter. He calls me Kevster. I'm not sure I approve of the name, but it's come to that. Has it not, Neil?
Absolutely, Kevster. You're the man.
So the people that jump using the time markers are really going to be mad because we introduced the Dolphins Bills 2 minutes ago. But once again, Kevin making the podcast longer. That's what he's known for.
Dolphins Bills. That's the cream of the AFC East.
It is. The Dolphins are 10th in the power rankings. The Bills are 3rd. The Bills are playing for seed. They want to maintain the number 2 seed in the AFC. Dolphins need to win to stay in. Miami has the best third down defense, 30.7%, while Buffalo's offense is the best on third down, 50.3%. Weather could be a factor for the Hawaiian quarterback as 37 degrees is the forecasted high with possible rain, snow showers. This is a pick'em from Vegas. That's because Sean McDermott is playing coy as to whether he's going to play his starters or not. I would imagine Sean McDermott, having been in the AFC East and seeing how Bill Belichick usually runs this, is going to play his starters for at least a half see where the game is, and determine if he needs to bench him or not. I suspect the Bills are still going to come out victorious on this one. Neil is taking the Dolphins. I suspect you think differently.
Like I said before the show started, Jay, I feel this is very much down to whether Josh Allen starts and how much he plays in this game. I think if they do rest players, which I would really, really hope the Bills do, because it doesn't matter to the Bills, does it? They're division champs and they can't change their seeding at this point, or very difficult to change their seeding. Is that correct?
They can't. No. If they lose and the Steelers win,
they go back to swap 2 and 3.
They will go back to the third spot, and Pittsburgh takes the number 2 seed.
Well, let me kill the Pittsburgh angle here right now before you even get to that game. Ben Roethlisberger is not playing on Sunday.
Exactly.
I'm aware, but you are talking about the Cleveland Browns.
So but anyway, I would if I was the Bills coach, I would rest everybody who I felt was important or was injured, and deal with it on that basis. I don't care about this game, and that's why I think the Dolphins will probably, because they if the Dolphins win, they're in. That's correct, huh?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I can see the Dolphins edging this one, but mainly because the Bills are. The Bills are going to be rested. Hopefully, we'll rest guys. If the Bills,
Neil, don't you feel there's something there though? This is squish the fish weekend. As much as they'd like the Dolphins to have to come back there the next week, if you could just keep them out altogether, is that more satisfying? And I don't know if Sean McDermott has that kind of AFC East edge. You know what I mean?
I think the Bills are just. Will be just so delighted to win the division after all these years. Well, 1995 was it? I don't think they care about the Dolphins, whether they get in or not. Personally, I think it's all about the Bills taking care of themselves for when the big dance starts, and that's more important. What's more important?
Right.
Knocking the Dolphins out and beating the Dolphins, and getting a few injuries, or keeping all your guys fit and healthy, and getting your home playoff game with some fans in the stadium. No. We're all looking forward to Bills fans jumping on tables and crashing through car doors. So
no tailgating.
Now, what's most important is the Bills avoiding the Chiefs for as long as possible, and the way to do that is to secure the number 2 seed. If they are the number 3 seed, they will face the Chiefs out of the bye week, assuming the Bills win their first playoff.
Jay, I kind of. I had you'll be able to tell me I had the Bills number 1 in my power rankings. I don't think the Bills are scared one little bit of the Chiefs, personally.
They're moxie right now, man. They are. See,
I
guess here's the thing. I guess when you do beat up the bully, then you have that sort of false bravado, not realizing there's a bigger bully around the corner, and that bigger bully is the Chiefs. The Chiefs will smack the Bills around. If the Chiefs get the Bills out of the bye week, the Bills are done for. If the Chiefs are playing the Bills in the championship game, I give the Bills a little bit more of a shot.
Not on current form, I wouldn't say. It's so clear cut.
Well, listen, I don't know, but I know we're not getting out of the Chiefs right now, but look, this whole crazy scientist crap, this supermodel twirl crap plays. Get back to it. You match up at every position. Just start using your talent. Did you guys see that?
Yes.
That wing T supermodel crap, direct snap to Darrell Williams option pass. Just play football? This is not 1970 Texas football. Like they're way down at every key metric right now, Kevin. And so overall, the Bills are a better team than them right now, but who's going to beat Mahomes? He hasn't lost in 425 days or whatever it is,
Kevin, can you confirm or deny that Doc is actually your dad? Because I could imagine. He sounds just like you, like 30 years old.
If he is my father, this is the first time I'm meeting him, so it brings a tear to my eye.
Brother, I got 2 kids I don't know about somewhere.
James, do we have any significant injuries to be concerned about in this one?
For the Dolphins, Jakeem Grant is doubtful with a high ankle sprain, and linebacker Landon Roberts is out. For the Bills, Cole Beasley is questionable with the leg injury he suffered in the Monday night win. Wide receiver John Brown and running back TJ Yeldon were placed on the COVID list this week.
Oh, by the way, the COVID list is being totally abused this week. There are people that are on the COVID list that probably belong on the COVID list. And then there's a bunch of guys that are being put on the COVID list that have that they're not a close contact. There's not that that COVID list is being so abused this week. It's not even funny.
Allegedly.
Sure.
Yeah. Thank you. Allegedly.
Yeah.
I mean, the Patriots fan talking about teams abusing a list.
Listen, I would know.
Everybody's questionable
Exactly my
with an inner
point.
thigh injury.
So I think we're sort of all in agreement here. If the Bills play their starters, they should win this game. I think they're going to try and play to get that number 2 seed. If they bench everybody right off the bat, then most likely the Dolphins will come out victorious. Although, like I said, that 12th man for Buffalo and not the fans, the weather is going to be on their side. It's going to be chilly, possible rain and snow. A Hawaiian quarterback, he's not going to like that.
He's up by half. Fitzmagic has never made the playoffs. He's motivated, and he's played in Buffalo, and he can play in cold weather.
I mean, Doc, what Fitzpatrick can do is just take the beard off and give it to Fitz to wear when he's out there in the field.
Don't you mean the other way around?
Fitz can take it off and give it to Doc. Give it to Doc. Give it to.
There they go.
Give it to Doc. Why not?
All right.
Next game.
Baltimore Ravens are at the Cincinnati Bengals. The Ravens are 7th. The Bengals are 29th. The Ravens favored by 12 in this one. Ravens need to win to stay in. Baltimore has fumbled 25 times, which is second most in the league. But they blitz 44% of snaps. That's the highest rate in football. Cincinnati has surrendered 48 sacks, which is second worst in the NFL. AM showers, 42 degrees is the high. Even if the Ravens were to decide to play backups, which they can't because they need to win to be in, they would beat the Cincinnati Bengals. Although we said that about Pittsburgh too. But we're all taking the Ravens.
Yeah, there's not much to say about this. Look, this is the second easiest game of the season for the Ravens, aside from last week when they trounced the Giants. And the same defensive injuries they had last week, they have this week. Both corners, Jimmy Smith and Marcus Peters, show up on the injury report as questionable, along with Yannick Ngakoue. Willie Snead has an ankle injury. Geno Stone, their safety, is out. So I'm not even going to get into the Bengals injuries because the Bengals don't matter right now. Sorry, Bengals fans.
I think it's a good story, Brandon Allen, to be a backup for Joe Burrow when he comes back. I think there's something being established there. I think they'll give him a bit of a game, but no way. There's too much momentum with the Ravens right now.
Well, and I would just add one of the things especially with the 5 games that are after this, but in Cincinnati, in light of Cincinnati and their 2021 prospects, I would say the arrow is definitely pointing up, assuming Joe Burrow comes back 100%, which there's no reason why he can't with the modern technology we have. Hell, Neil's got a quarterback who had a half-eaten chicken leg for a leg at one point and is back playing quarterback. So I imagine the things are on the up for Cincinnati. What do they need to do, though, Neil, to get better, to improve from a 4-10-1 season?
This is a team who needs offensive line help massively, and they might just be looking into Penny Sewell from Oregon in the draft. But offensive line is the first port of call because you've got to protect Burrow, and you've got to. In this league today, you've got to get an offensive game going, don't you? And it all starts in the offensive line, as we all know.
Are we good with this? Do we have anything more to say about the Ravens-Bengals here? I mean, the Ravens struggled there, but they certainly seem to have gotten things back on track. Unlike the way that COVID ravaged the Patriots and made them suck ever since they dealt with their COVID outbreak, the Ravens seem to have really bounced back strong.
Can you just wait? Get the Patriots later, yeah?
Yeah, thank you. All right, good. The Steelers are at the Browns. The Steelers are 8th in the power rankings. The Browns are 12th. Vegas really loves the Browns ever since Mason Rudolph was announced as the starter. Browns favored by 10 in this particular game. Steelers will be playing for seed. Browns need to win to stay in. Pittsburgh is dead last in yards per completion, only 9.5 yards per completion. Enter Mason Rudolph. I'm sure that that stat will get better. Not. While it's the most Brownsian thing to do, I really don't think they're going to lose in this particular matchup. AM rain, snow showers in the forecast, a high of 40, a wind of 10 miles per hour. We actually all believe that the Browns will not do the Browns thing and lose. We're all taking them to win against the Steelers.
They did the Browns thing last week and lost to the Jets. So,
true. But two things, James. First of all, the Steelers are getting an upgraded quarterback, so that might help them. And secondly, the one thing, come on, which one of us is not sitting here thinking, oh, I want to see Rudolph against Garrett round 2, where he actually cracks him right in the chops with a helmet this time and not half miss him like he did last time?
Well, more importantly, the reason he whipped him in the head with the helmet because he got kicked in the nads.
Exactly. I can't wait for that. I just cannot wait for that. Don't care about the game.
How many sacks does Myles Garrett get?
I don't know.
We're under 2.5.
What's his total and what's the league lead? Whatever that difference is, that's what I'm taking.
He's certainly going to get him in the nutsack.
Oh, boy. All right. My goodness. It's really gone off the rails here in week 17. We're in late season form. Beautiful. All right. Is there any way? Yes, there is. The Browns have a couple of COVID list guys again this week.
And today?
Oh, my gosh. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Andrew Sendejo, Harrison Bryant, Carl Joseph this week. Last week it was the entire receiving core, and Jarvis Landry is still on that list. Matter of fact, he's currently showing us out, along with Alexander Hollins.
I think we found who has COVID.
I'd be concerned with the Browns and who actually suits up for this game on Sunday.
Without Jarvis Landry in this particular matchup, I think the Browns could lose, even to Mason Rudolph.
Yeah, I mean, there's one of the, we're talking about the Browns. Now, if you could think of one team who could absolutely cock it up at this late stage with 2 games to go, they've got to beat the backup quarterback for Pittsburgh, or else previously beat the 1-12 at that point Jets, 1-13 Jets. Who's a team you would pick to cock that up entirely and miss the playoffs?
By the way, I can't tell if you're swearing or not. It sounds rather close.
What? like a mess up, Sorry, that's the
I'm aware. I'm aware what you meant. I got the context. It's just a funny phrase.
But you just don't want me to say on the website, on the podcast, okay?
Oh my gosh, and there it is.
But that's it, isn't it? I mean, it's if anybody's going to mess this scenario up, it's the Browns, isn't it? Lose to the Jets and then lose to the Roethlisberger-less Steelers. It's the Browns. So there's a huge chance they're going to do the same thing.
I definitely am not going to take the Browns giving away 10 points. I will take the Steelers getting 10 points any day of the week.
Because it's the Browns. And look, far be it from the league to actually have 2 starved, hungry fan bases yearning for the playoffs actually make the playoffs. Good on the Bills actually getting the job done. And in Cleveland, I'm sorry, you're still an embarrassment. Losing to the Jets last week, unforgivable. All they have to do this week is go back 100 years to the early days of football with leather helmets and no shoulder pads and just run it. You got Hunt, you got Chubb. Just turn around, hand it off, 2 tight ends, whatever one wide receiver has been on the roster all year, and that's your formation.
If the Browns miss the playoffs, the Jets game is the one that they have to look at themselves and go, that's the one that we should not have lost.
That's right.
Because honestly, I mean, a 10-6 record, there's really not much more you can tell the team to go and do and improve to get better for next season. Now you bring Odell Beckham. Now Odell Beckham Jr. comes back from injury. The question is, does he come back to the Browns or do they trade him away?
Who cares?
Something the Browns can do. Win more divisional games.
Neil, interesting. Who cares? Why would you say who cares?
Because he's become a parody, hasn't he? He's not is he a proper football player anymore? I'm not sure.
I agree with Neil.
Have they missed him at all? I mean, really? Have they missed him? No? Before he went off injured, they were trying to force the ball to him. That didn't work. So, I don't know, Jay. It's just it's somebody I don't think about anymore in terms of being a top football player.
That's fair. But I will say, Kevin, your team is chock full of wide receivers that may be underperforming in some regards. But James, you have a team that has no wide receivers. You don't think OBJ improves your receiving core immediately?
I'm sorry. There's a character issue there with OBJ that I already don't need in my already dysfunctional locker room.
Jay, That's really important what James says, because yes, he would improve any wide receiver core in the league, no question, but he would not improve your team.
All right. That is a fair statement.
Now, I know this is coming from you. I mean, obviously your team has 0 wide receivers, so I would probably improve. But, because more objectively, you are the AFC representative here.
Yeah, my team will 100% have a jersey waiting for him if that's the case. That we'll welcome him with open arms. And
so far,
we will even embrace his weirdness. Because honestly, I think he's one of those locker room pariahs, as he's been labeled. Mm-hmm. That's not really a pariah. He marches to a beat of a different drummer, kind of like Randy Moss and Corey Dillon did before they ended up in New England. And look what happened. So sure, if everyone's going to label him as a locker room pariah, as someone who's going to destroy your team, New England's going to take that first round Hall of Fame talent and utilize it to its most effectiveness.
Okay, but for the two examples you just gave, Randy Moss earned the right to be the way he was, considering he was just a freak of nature on the field. He could do whatever he wanted, whenever he wanted to any secondary in the league. And Corey Dillon played for the Bengals. So you're talking about a guy who rushed for 1,200 yards every year of his career in Cincinnati for a team that never won a game.
I am, but I'm also talking about two guys that nobody wanted. Nobody would touch those guys.
Yeah, but you're also talking about the two guys who are exceptions to the rule.
But neither of them.
And I'm saying Odell Beckham Jr. would be the exception to the rule.
Either.
Well, James, Jay, you got to remember, neither of those two players simulated sex with a kicking net.
All right. Jeez. Neil is on fire today.
Your fault. You got him started.
Dallas Cowboys are at the New York Giants. The Cowboys are 20th in the power rankings. The Giants are 26th. Cowboys are favored by 3 points in this game. Cowboys need to win and the Washington football team to lose to win the East. And the same goes for the Giants as well. But I think you can tell by the way that I read that, I have a certain feeling this game's going to turn out one way, not the other. Dallas's offense has the third worst turnover rate, 14.9%, while New York is the 11th best at that defensively, 12.5%. Not looking good for my pick in that regard, but I can't pick the Giants. Rain and 43 degrees is the forecasted high. I'm going to take the Cowboys. I just think they're hitting on the right cylinders at the right time, and the Giants are terrible.
Oh, boy. What a quote. What? Hitting on the right cylinders.
Their offense has looked much better than it looked all season long.
I'm sorry. As I said before, I don't really care about this season much anymore. I really don't care if they win or lose the Cowboys, but I really don't think they're going to win. I think because the Giants really do have a good defense. Let's be serious for a second. The Giants have a good defense. It's in New York. They also have the playoffs at stake, so they're going to be just as hungry as the Cowboys. And last time we played them, we had Dak in Dallas and came down to a last-second field goal. I just have a bad feeling about this one. The Cowboys, this is the sort of thing that you do. You speak about the Browns doing Brownsian things. The Cowboys are going to do Cowboys things. They're going to get all Cowboys fans' hopes up to get to 7-9 and somehow make the playoffs to lose in the first round. All they have to do is beat the Giants, and we're just going to lose. It's just how things go in Dallas. But I really think that both teams are pretty equal in talent. It's just the Cowboys, if you watch them, there's just no reason to be confident or excited about them or have any sort of optimism about them for any game this year. The defense does have 11 takeaways, I think, in the last 4 games, but that doesn't encourage me the way they played the first 11, 12 games of this season. I don't know. It'll be at least the one thing I can say is through this whole crappy season, at least I get to have 17 entertaining weeks of football, of worthwhile watching football, of games that actually meant something. So in 2020, I suppose you can call it a win. And I sort of went on a tangent there, but, I don't really care. That's what I do. But 2020, 17 games that meant something, I'll take it. For such a horrendous season, it was actually pretty entertaining to watch.
Kev, since this is your team, what do you need to do next season besides Dak Prescott? Or is Dak Prescott even the answer?
Dak Prescott is the answer. I mean, that's not the only thing that went wrong for the Cowboys this year. Everyone talks about, when they talk about the NFC East, they talk about the Eagles' offense line being decimated and how many injuries they had. Look at the Cowboys' offense line. Lyle Collins never played it down this year. He's going to be back next year. Tyron Smith played 1.5 games. We're probably going to have to look into replacing him for the future. So I would say we'd probably look for offensive line in the draft or in free agency, because Tyron, he'd probably be back next year, but you can't rely on him at this point to stay healthy. He's had back problems for 3.5, 4 years now. Zach Martin got hurt after the Seahawks game. So our offensive line has been decimated the whole year. Next year, our defense will have a year under their belt with Trayvon Diggs, so that'll be good. Yeah, but you're not going to fix that defense in one offseason, because there's a lot of holes on that bad boy. Speaking of which, we need better defensive tackles. Jalen Smith and Leighton Vander Esch have fallen off precipitously from the 2018 season. It's sort of laughable how bad they are compared to what they were in 2018. And, Xavier Woods that experiment's over in the safety position, so we need to, get new safeties. I mean, I've been saying that since 2015, but so the whole defense is pretty much a problem. But on offensively, we should be good to go next year. Just sign Dak, our receivers, somewhat healthy offensive line. Our offense will be humming again next year. I have no concerns about that. It's the defense that's 2 or 3 years away from being somewhat competitive, honestly.
Hey, Kev, Doc here. I just got a question for you, being if you got the foresight for this.
Yes, please.
I don't see how you're going to be able to rebuild a team with those 2 contracts. I just the percentage of the cap that it's going to take to keep your QB and then manage that ridiculous contract. What do you do? I mean, there's not going to be much there. I mean, how are you going to rebuild those soft spots? I'm interested to hear that from a Cowboys fan.
I mean, it is a great question. I mean, I don't really know. I know we're not in a great cap situation going into 2021. I mean, I'm sure we'll restructure contracts to free up some space going forward. We already did some of that at the start of the season. Honestly, I mean, I'm not really concerned about salary cap space. As a fan, the Cowboys always find a way to make it work. But we have to sign Dak, and it's just not even a question about it. We have to sign Dak. We've won too many games now. We're not going to get. I know a lot of people on Cowboys Twitter wanted us to stop winning after Dak went down to tank for Trevor Lawrence, which at this point, we could have done with the Jets going on their winning spree. But basically, we just need to draft well on defense, and we need to draft them in the first round. We need to draft appropriately. We can't draft we try to rebuild our secondary in the past by sending late round flyers on safety. Like Xavier Woods is a 6th-round pick, and we've been on that experiment for 4 years. We need to invest higher draft capital into our defensive draft picks. I mean, we have in the past with Taco Charlton. That didn't go so well, but our secondary has been such an issue for so long, and I think that's the root of most of our defensive concerns, that even if we draft 1 or 2 secondary players in the first 3 rounds, I think that will make a great difference on our team. As you see, I know Neil wasn't a fan of Trayvon Diggs going into the draft and out of the draft, but I think he's performed relatively well as a rookie. He's made some good plays. I think he'll be improved next year. But yeah, I mean, we have to draft smart. When you have this little wiggle room, as you said, salary cap, you just have to draft smart. Hopefully your free agent acquisitions are come through. And what I learned this year, and what Cowboys ownership should have learned this year, is you can't just give out 2-year contracts to 35-year-olds like Gerald McCoy and Dontari Poe and hope that they make a difference. That's not going to work out for us, obviously. So, I mean, we're in a tough situation. There's no doubt about it. But I think you have to prioritize Dak no matter what.
All right. So to my NFC East friends, as we switch the script to the Giants, if Saquon Barkley is healthy all season, is it the Giants division and we're not even bothering with this crazy Week 17 scenario?
No. Because Daniel Jones still hasn't proven that he can be a competent NFL quarterback every single week, and the offensive line still doesn't protect him.
And Barkley was doing not a great deal before he was injured anyway.
True that.
All right.
How's the Giants left tackle performing this year? Does anyone know? Their 4th overall pick, because I really do not know.
Andrew Thomas, I think pretty average, to be honest.
No, he was hurt in the beginning of the year, but his ratings have gone up pretty much. He's really, really, as far as a couple of offensive line coaches I follow, they say he's ramped up his game the last 6 or 7 to become over average. That's all I heard. So,
That's unfortunate.
Yep.
What do we have for injuries, James? And we will move on.
Zach Martin should be good to go this week coming off the injured reserve. Ezekiel Elliott has a calf injury, so he's limited in practice today. And for the Giants, Evan Ingram and Golden Tate show up as questionable for the game on Sunday.
So we do move on to the 4 o'clock games. To be more specific, the 4:25 games. And we start with the Green Bay Packers at the Chicago Bears. The Packers are 2nd in the power rankings. The Bears are 13th. Green Bay is favored by 5.5. Green Bay needs to win to keep the number 1 seed in the NFC. Bears need a win and a loser in the Cards-Rams to get in. I believe if the Cards and Rams tie and the Bears win, the Bears would still be out. Could be wrong on that. But I believe that's true. David Montgomery has been held to under 95 rushing yards only once in the last 5 weeks. Green Bay's defense is 21st in yards per carry, 4.6 against. The Packers are tops in the red zone at 78.4%. Chicago's defense is second best in the red zone at 51%. So the Bears have a chance, but it is very slight. 33 degrees is the high with a slight breeze under 10 miles per hour. I've initially taken the Packers, but when I do say that the Bears have a slight chance, I was very tempted to go with the upset. Only one of us on this call made that call, and that was you, Doc. You're going with the Bears.
Adam and Eve on a raft, a cup of muck, and an upset special.
Yeah, it's hopeful, wishing and hoping. There's not much to hang your hat on with the Bears, really. I don't care whether Trubisky's the next Tannehill or whatever, but you just look at, who have they beat? The Lions, Texans, Jags, Vikes. Come on. They look semi-dangerous. Their defense, 7th overall in quality ratings, I think is the kicker. I'm just wondering right now whether Montgomery is the ticket to ride here. And if he can keep on keeping up, I think they can make it with a couple of turnovers, a real close game. It's more of a hopeful pick at this point because I think it's quintessential for my Saints to get home field. So, and you guys know that scenario. The Green Bay has to lose and Seattle and the Saints have to win for the Saints to go into the second tiebreaker, or the third tiebreaker, which will give them home field. So it's more of a hopeful pick.
I mean, it's not just David Montgomery. Mitch Trubisky here has put up 33 plus points in the last 3 here. 36-7 win versus the Texans, 33-27 win at Minnesota, 41-17 at the Jaguars. Is this really just
no, Jay, you're misspeaking there.
Schedule here?
It's not Trubisky. It's the running game. It's Montgomery. Trubisky's been playing complementary to that running game, and that's pretty much what's got these 3 wins. They've packed it in. They decided they're going to ground and pound. They're going to run the ball. They're going to use play action off of it, and it's worked the last 3 weeks. I'm not putting this on Trubisky because if it was just straight drop back and everything was on Trubisky's shoulders, cool, but they haven't been doing that. They've actually committed to running the football.
And Jimmy Graham, you got that running game working. Jimmy Graham works better. He's playing some of the best ball he's played in the last 5 years. But nobody's talking about the 5 or 6 turnover-worthy plays that Trubisky's had. It's all been the final stats and the W's. He's nothing but a pretty Denny's waitress at this point. So
plus, although they've scored 30 points in the last 4 games, the 3 victories they've had there have been against the Texans, Vikings, and Jaguars. So it's not like they're playing elite defenses week in, week out.
No, but
plus Green Bay just needs to win this game, don't they? I mean, that's a huge thing in their favor. They've actually got to go out and win this for the number 1 seed. So.
Well, do they? I mean, they have the game up on everybody.
No, so what it is, Pod, is if
but they lose tiebreakers to almost everybody.
Yeah.
So they
have to win this game.
Are you talking about the Pack or the Bears?
Packers.
Well, the Bears absolutely have to win.
The Pack. The Pack have to. If the Pack loses, let's say that New Orleans, the Pack, and Seattle all end up with identical records, the Saints go in. Even though the Pack beat them, that tiebreaker goes out the window, and it goes to in conference and then common opponents, and that's where the Saints would have the edge. But let's say that the Pack lose and Seattle loses, right? Then Green Bay gets in. But anyways, the point is, it's huge. If you got to go through Green Bay, states, it is what it is. You got to go. You're either in the Dome or you're going through Green Bay. So at this point.
And that's a huge advantage, obviously. Talking about the 12th man, that's not the fans. The weather in Green Bay in the month of January should provide for some lovely moments. I seem to remember a particularly famous game known as the Ice Bowl.
Yes.
And that game was in December, if I'm not mistaken. All right. What do we have for injuries in this one, James?
Jay Sternberger, Simon Stepanak, Jamal Williams, Will Redmond, Rick Wagner, and that's about it for the Packers. All show up as questionable, all expected to play. For the Bears, you got Buster Screen, Jalen Johnson, Demetrius Harris are listed as questionable.
I mean, just to make this podcast even longer, we're now joined by Kansas City superfan, his smugness himself, Nick. Nick, do the Green Bay
we
Packers?
We can silence them to the end.
Do the Green Bay Packers frighten you and your team in any case?
I think they're probably the team that I would least want to see in that final dance, that final game. But they've shown that they're mortal as well. And how are you gentlemen doing?
We're doing just fine. I would have to say that the Packers, I mean, if Devontae Adams decides to continue to do what he did for my friend's fantasy team all season long in the first half against the Bears, then might as well call it, right? At that point, we don't have to worry about it. We can rest our starters for the rest of the game and pretend that the Bears tried.
You see, that was the epitome of smugness, because Nick comes in and answers Jay's question. The correct answer for non-smug fans is we can't look that far ahead. We take each game as it comes, and next week is the only game we're looking at. Oh, no, Nick goes straight in for, of all the teams, while he's filing his nails, of all the teams we're looking at, we probably don't like the Packers. We'll take anybody else. And the
next
AFC,
game.
get them.
It'd probably be the most entertaining game. I'll give you that much.
No, I'm looking at a 1992 Super Bowl rematch between Buffalo and Washington.
And that is certainly the most likely.
Oh, bad.
The Tennessee Titans are at the Houston Texans. I'm a little surprised on this one that this wasn't the game that got flexed. But the Titans are 9th in the power rankings. The Texans are 24th. Titans are favored by 7.5. The Titans need to win to be in, and somebody loses. Colts lose specifically. The Titans will win the AFC South. Derrick Henry leads the league in rushing, while Houston's defense is worst in yards per carry against, allowing 5 yards per carry against specifically. So the question here, Neil, as you're the guy who loves these types of stats, can Derrick Henry get 223 yards to get to the 2K mark?
Yeah, man, you got to ask yourself, Jay, haven't you, who wants it more, J.J. Watt or Derrick Henry? J.J. Watt not happy. And as well, just a little bit, I'm feeling a bit queasy because you keep talking about flexing all the time, and this gives me all sorts of weird imagination. Kevin, I notice, is the one guy who's going for Houston, so come on, Kevin, spit it out.
Yeah, I'm going for Houston because over the last 2.5, 3 years, ever since the Titans started being competitive, I really haven't bought into them ever, even though they made it to the AFC Championship game last year. Like Tannehill, his whole thing last year and his whole thing this year, like I still don't think they're that good, honestly. That might be naive of me or just plain out, flat out stupid. But that's how I think. And I don't think the Texans are very good either. And I know they have a horrible defense. And most likely Derrick Henry will, he'll probably get 100-plus rushing yards. But I just love Deshaun Watson so much. And he's had, a really good low-key year, but the Texans are so bad no one really notices. But just peep his stats. He's had a really great year. And honestly, just give me the better quarterback, and you could win any game, really. Basically, I'm just picking him because I like Deshaun, and I don't really like the Titans for whatever reason that I formulated in my head.
That's a loaded – wait, by the way, that was a loaded thing that you just said because I don't know if Deshaun Watson is necessarily the better quarterback to Ryan Tannehill.
Yeah.
Of course he is. Oh, my God.
But
Ryan Tannehill has been really good the last 2 years.
The one thing
I still don't buy into it.
The one area the Titans struggle, and Nick will probably tell us all about this, but the Titans couldn't pass rush the way out of a wet paper bag. I mean, their pass rush is horrendous, and that's going to come back.
True.
That defense is going to come back to haunt them, isn't it?
Their defense in general is real bad, and I would pick Houston to at least cover. The 7.5 line for a division game where, as someone mentioned, J.J. Watt is going to be fired up to at least spoil some plans for a division rival on the way to close out their season. I could see it.
Just in case you missed J.J. Watt's most excellent post-game speech, the Tuesday podcast, the vaunted Tuesday podcast that Neil has finally come to discover and actually tweet about. Thank you, Neil. We appreciate it. He's first on the list. I mean, it's the most awesome 1 minute and 45 seconds you're going to hear. It's
that's a guy who knows he's not coming back next year,
huh? What do we have for injuries, James?
Houston offensive tackles Brent Vale and Laramie Tunsil questionable and doubtful. Deshaun Watson is questionable because he suffered an arm injury. And running back Duke Johnson is questionable for this game as well. For the Tennessee Titans, their punter Brett Kern is out. He was placed on the COVID list. And cornerback Christian Fulton is questionable.
Yeah. See, the Brett Kern does not have COVID. He did not come in contact with someone with COVID. That's one that I'm calling BS on right there. That is not the proper use of the COVID list.
Look, Houston's reeling right now. They just let a Bengals team run for almost 200 yards on them last week. I'd like to say they'd be fired up this week, but no.
Hey, did anybody get what was the actual any damage at all to Watson's arm with the finger in the helmet catch there?
Yeah.
Was it a sprain? A little bit of a sprain?
Yeah, I think it was a sprain, elbow, shoulder.
Yeah.
But the way it got caught on that throw was not a pretty sight to look at.
I thought maybe he would have torn his rotator cuff on that thing. Man, holy moly.
Has there been a quarterback that's ever had more weird injuries? I mean, he did the commercial where he talked about getting kicked in the eye or whatever that weird play was where he got kicked in the eye while there was a player going down on a tackle attempt.
Well, it kicked the pellets up in his eye. The foot missed his helmet. But that was the game where he did suffer a punctured lung. He suffered a punctured lung that game to where he had to ride the bus to the game the next week instead of getting on a plane.
This dude doesn't just get injured. He gets injured in the most spectacular manner possible.
He's one of those players, isn't he, who has a penchant for keeping plays going, and the more you keep the plays going and you're scrambling about back there, the more likely you are to get Myles Garrett's helmet in your chops.
Yeah, he's magic, man. I mean, he should have had 11 and 12 broken ribs in that pancake in the playoffs last year with the Bills, and he just spun out of it and makes a great throw. He's like Mahomes. He's got a little bit of Superman in him, but yeah, he does find weird ways to get injured.
I mean, the Texans are going to have a full makeover here in this offseason, but you're also going to tell me OBJ doesn't make the Texans better?
I think we've already said, Jay, he makes Beckham makes any wide receiving group better. He makes your team worse.
No, he's not going to make the team. I'm saying he won't make the team worse. Not with a brand new administration. They're going to have a whole brand new team.
What is it about?
Okay, but does the new head coach of the Houston Texans actually want OBJ? That's the first question.
Well, that will be the first question.
Do you know what wide receiver is?
Is this let's ask if the number one coaching draft pick, Eric Bieniemy, is this his ultimate destination here, Nick?
I that's what everyone says just because of Watson, and I get it. And I get that having a franchise quarterback is far better than any number of picks. Like I personally don't really care that much if I'm an incoming coach that the Texans don't have a couple of first round picks. Because for most of these other rebuilding teams, what are you going to use those first round picks for anyway? At rolling the dice at drafting a quarterback, you got Watson. That is settled. That said, I still think I would slightly prefer the Chargers as an overall landing spot because they have much more pieces on defense, all that kind of stuff. But you are trapped in a division with Kansas City.
That one's not open. The Los Angeles Chargers. I also don't think it will be open.
No, it's not going to be open.
I would say if Los Angeles is open, then I would say you're right. That's probably number one. But let's take Los Angeles out. So where's his next choice?
Well, you've got Detroit as an option.
Let's take the ones that are 100% open, and we'll include Jacksonville and New York in that conversation.
Well, Jacksonville's the number one place to be. Anybody wants to go to Jacksonville. I mean, you don't want to go to Houston because of Easterby. You don't want to go to
Easterby. Well, there's no guarantee Easterby is still going to be on that team.
Right. Easterby's not going to be there.
We'll see about that. But Jacksonville is the place to go. They've got loads of draft choices, including the number one pick, and that's going to be Trevor Lawrence. So if you can't have, Nick is absolutely correct in terms of having the quarterback in place. But if you don't have the quarterback in place, you can't do much worse than getting the number one overall pick when there's potentially a generational quarterback coming out. So that gives you a decent chance. So I think Jacksonville is the place to be. They've also got 2 first round picks and 2 seconds. So it's good news.
I don't know. If I'm Eric Bieniemy, I think Houston would be my choice. It would also depend on if Easterby is still there. Yeah,
that's right.
And who's the general manager that's going to come with me. And if it's that Ryan Poles character, who's also been talked about, who's part of the Chiefs organization, it would make a lot of sense.
Is he the quarterback coach?
No, he's the assistant director of player personnel for the Kansas City Chiefs.
Like, am I right in saying
GM candidate?
Am I right in saying the quarterback coach for the Chiefs is also getting some looks as a head coaching candidate?
I mean, you never know. I mean, this could be a year where it's like the McVay year, where just everybody on that offensive staff gets some kind of other job. I mean, the QB coach for the Chiefs is Mike Kafka, who's only been in that position, I think, for a year, maybe 2.
And retired.
Yeah, well, retired as a QB. But I have always kind of assumed that he's going to be the next Chiefs OC to be hired somewhere else. Like, it's going to be EB's going to be gone, and then a year or 2 from now, Kafka is going to take over from one of the former Chiefs OCs, maybe Nagy or something.
I think Brian Daboll for the Bills has moved up. Obviously, with the way you're seeing a lot of KC offense in the Bills right now, and how dynamic that quarterback is. I think Daboll is going to get a lot of sniffs. I think Houston's perfect for him to utilize Watson's talents.
Well, that would keep Easterby there because there's a Patriots connection.
Oh, gosh.
The Jacksonville Jaguars are at the Indianapolis Colts. Colts favored by 14. They are 11th in our power rankings. The Jaguars remain at 32. You guys are all wrong. They are not the worst team in the NFL. But
yes, they quite literally are.
Consensus says they are. Colts need to win to stay in. The Jags' only win was against the Colts in week 1. Jacksonville has scored on only 31.4% of drives. That's 30th in the NFL. So once again, there are 2 teams worse there, Neil. Indianapolis ranks 9th in said category defensively, 36.5%. Jacksonville are the new Raiders. They've been penalized for 1,017 yards. That is worst in the NFL. Nick, I haven't asked for your picks, and I'm not going to stop the podcast again to get a whole nother list of picks, but I'm assuming you're going to go with the Colts like all of us.
I will, but I would not be surprised at all, given how surprisingly well the Jaguars have been competing in some of these games. Despite doing everything they can to not win in terms of their roster decisions, they've been in it, and the Colts have shown a knack for screwing this up late. I mean, the Colts I think need some help to get into the playoffs anyway, but the Colts absolutely should have had that game against Pittsburgh last week. That's, and look, this is still a Phillip Rivers team, man. Like there is no fourth quarter lead that he can't somehow find a way to screw up and it would not surprise me.
I dare say too, James, it depends on which quarterback starts for the Jaguars. Is it going to be Glennon or is it going to be Minshew?
Cue the porn music.
Yeah, it should be Minshew. Mind you, Minshew was the starter week 1 when they beat the Colts. But Minshew nor Glennon show up on the injury report in any way, shape, or form this week. This does come down to a coach's decision. So, I mean, look, right now we currently have James Robinson, the outstanding rookie. He's not going to play in this game. DJ Chark is questionable. And Colin Johnson, the wide receiver, he is out. The other wide receiver, he's out with a hamstring. So, again, look, with everything the Jaguars have done to solidify this number 1 pick, who knows what the heck they do on Sunday. The Colts, nothing really to worry about here. Marcus Johnson is questionable. Anthony Costanzo is questionable. Both are expected to play, along with wide receiver Michael Pittman. But, yeah, Nick hit it on the head. There's no lead that's safe with Phillip Rivers as quarterback.
I see a shutout.
You think Colts shut out the Jaguars?
Yeah, I do. I think that defense is going to be like they've had a lot of tough games. I think this is a cakewalk, and I think the D just could shut them down to a field goal. 3 points or a shutout.
Well, they'll be doing a lot of praying, especially for Buffalo and Pittsburgh, to actually try to win their games, because those are the 2 most logical games they could hope for wins from, because the Ravens are going to win their game. That's a given.
The Texans can upset the Titans.
Okay, so they're going to be preying on Buffalo and Pittsburgh wins, because those are the 2 games most likely to go in their favor. They're not winning this division, period. They own no tiebreakers over anyone ahead of them. That's the Titans, the Dolphins, the Colts, or the Ravens. They are screwed. There's so much praying going on this week. They need to sacrifice a lamb, throw a virgin in the volcano, something. I don't know what the heck, but any amount of voodoo they can conjure up and muster between now and Sunday, they need to get on it, because that's the only way they're making the playoffs.
It's been a very graphic edition of the Next Fan Up podcast. I will say that.
Sounds like a good weekend in Kevin's house.
Neil, I've been freaking silent for 20 minutes. Don't bring me into this mess.
All right. I mean, the Jaguars are going to clean house. We already talked about potential coaching candidates. They're going to have Trevor Lawrence. I mean, hopefully a culture change is just what the Jaguars need. But I mean, this team was in the AFC Championship not that long ago, got rid of all those guys, and now they're back to the bottom of the league again. They need just some sort of stability is what they really need.
Well, they're going to have a running back. They're going to have a quarterback who start.
Everyone knew that 2017 AFC Championship was lightning striking. This is ridiculous. No, everyone knew that wasn't going to happen in 2018. Bortles was your quarterback. I still can't believe that actually happened with Bortles.
I believe it did, because I called it. I said it was going to happen, and it did.
Hey, Rex Grossman went to the Super Bowl, so.
Oh, God, don't remind us. This team is the equivalent of the Miami Marlins in baseball. Build a team up to get to a championship level competition and then immediately tear it down.
The Arizona Cardinals are at the Los Angeles Rams. Both teams basically stay the same from their previous week, but move down one spot. The Rams 14th, the Cardinals are 15th. The Rams are favored by 5 in this one, which makes literally no sense. Both teams need a win to get in. The loser is out if the Bears beat the Packers. The Rams and Cardinals are 2 of the 3 best teams in limiting air yardage. John Wofford is starting for the Rams, and they'll be without Darrell Henderson and Cam Akers. Is Cam Akers still out?
Injured, yeah.
Cam Akers is questionable, but Henderson is out. Cooper Kupp is out, and Jared Goff is not playing.
Yeah. The Cards are winning this game. Doc, you went with the Rams, but the Cards are winning. And Neil has something to say.
Well, I was just going to say, are they 5-point favorites because Murray might not be playing?
Possibly.
Yeah, Murray's practicing as we speak. They've just shown him on the practice field taking first-team reps on NFL Network. So he's practicing.
I think basically he got a leg injury on Sunday, and it's 16 weeks of his legs having to cope with carrying the weight of that huge helmet.
By the way, since I wrote down these lines, the line has dropped to 4 in favor of the LA Rams.
Come on, Jay. We need
expect that to change by Saturday.
Some sports books right now just posted -1 and -2 for the Cardinals.
Jay, we're all about accuracy here.
Listen, I can't do anything about things changing literally from. I did this sheet at like 10 o'clock this morning. It was only a few hours ago, right before we started recording.
27 years ago.
All right, let's see here. I mean, if it's backup versus backup, okay, who's the Cardinals backup?
No one knows.
Who's the Rams backup?
It's John Wofford. Come on.
Oh, gosh.
How have you not heard about John Wofford yet?
Because I haven't.
Good Morning Football's been all over John Wofford. He's formerly of Wake Forest. Kyler Murray's backup is Chris Streveler.
Oh, that Chris Streveler.
Yeah. So
cool.
I mean, I would go. I don't know, especially if Cooper Kupp. Now, is Cooper Kupp actually out on the COVID list, or is he
out?
He got a chance to come back with 2 negatives.
No.
Okay.
He is either being deemed a close contact or he's tested positive. He was placed on the COVID list with illness.
Okay, so if he's out, then that means he has COVID. Because if he was only a close contact, he needs 2 negatives to play, which
he's
can't
out.
do. All right. Then I got to give the edge still to Arizona. Their offense is just better than what's going to be left for the Rams. 100%.
I mean, the only good news for the Rams is Andrew Whitworth is being activated from injured reserve, so he's going to play this week. I guess that helps.
Big time.
Nick, what's your choice on this game?
I guess I lean Cardinals, but it is a road game for them, and I could still see. I mean, they've been so discombobulated on offense, despite all of their talent at times, that I could see Aaron Donald just winning, single-handedly winning this like 9-7.
Could this be? I was doing some research on the worst offenses in league history, because we'll get to that later on. But 3-0, we haven't seen a 3-0 game for a few years. Could this be a 3-0 game?
Depends if Murray starts. If Murray starts, surely they win easily. But if Murray doesn't start, this could be. I mean, it's going to be just some shootout with those 2 rocket-armed quarterbacks, isn't it?
Yes, it'd be a fantastic shootout. All right. Any other injuries to report on, James?
Chase Edmonds is nursing a hip injury, and DeAndre Hopkins has what's listed as an upper body injury that he's taking care of.
Upper body.
I don't know.
Encompasses a lot.
Yeah, it does.
The New Orleans Saints are at the Carolina Panthers. The Saints 4th in the power rankings. The Panthers 21st. Saints are favored by 6.5. seeding implications in this particular game. The Saints defense is fourth in yards per carry, 3.9, and net yards per attempt, 5.7. Needless to say, the Panthers are just not that good. Interesting offseason ahead for the Panthers, but since I have a Saints super fan here, Doc, I will give you the floor. We're all taking the Saints, by the way.
That's pretty easy. I think this is now officially could be the farewell tour. So we enter now the show me, don't tell me season. I think they've just got to finish out strong on the off chance that they can stay in the dome until they get to Tampa. But that being said, they've crapped the bed in one way or another. Usually it's through Sean Payton in the playoffs. And so I think that the way they're running the ball, the way they have kept Drew clean, keep those ribs clean and keep our fingers crossed that Michael Thomas is coming back healthy. And then you've got, Devontae and the way he's playing in like another Michael Thomas year. You've got that relationship back, which they haven't had. And Michael was he's 9 for 100, 10 for 100. When he comes back healthy, and it'll be the first time he's healthy all season to start, I think they just want to get there, have a chance to host. I don't think anything stops that running game, and everybody just park the 6 touchdown crap, driving fantasy owners. It's play calling. I wanted to get him the record. He wasn't even the top running back on PFF this week. The reason was it's play calling. Sean wanted the novelty. Put it aside. This is a team game. And it's just with the way that offensive line has got to start crescendoing. If they get Nick Easton back, then they got 6-7 healthy linemen. And that bodes very well for Drew going all the way to the Super Bowl. So I think they don't stub their toe here.
As I was saying about the Carolina Panthers, I think it's an interesting offseason ahead. It's another team that I think the arrow is sort of pointing up, but I do wonder what they're going to do with Christian McCaffrey. He's got that huge contract. Mike Davis filled in well enough for certain, and Curtis Samuel is an intriguing free agent wide receiver, and I'm guessing with the way that OBJ has been demonized, you guys would feel the exact opposite about Curtis Samuel.
Also, a report that just came out just before you guys went to air, the Panthers are apparently among teams that are interested in Dwayne Haskins.
Have at it.
Yeah.
Jesus, Murphy.
Oh, man. Look, the kid needs a fresh start. I'm actually rooting for Dwayne Haskins wherever he goes to, quickly turn his career around and get the chance. Look, as we said on Tuesday when Justin was on, like the problem in Washington as far as why Haskins was let go does start with management and the owner. Stop signing players your coaching staff doesn't want. And once that happens, and apparently he's a listen to Rivera, situations like this probably won't happen in the future going forward. But, that's yet to be seen. We'll see what Washington does quarterback-wise going to the offseason and more when we get there. But as far as Haskins goes, look, he's a second-year player who got a raw deal. He got drafted by an organization who coach they were going to fire regardless of how the season turned out didn't want him, and the new coaching regime didn't want him. So nothing was ever done to try to help him, wholeheartedly help him to come along properly. So I feel like some of his antics and his actions was a little bit rebellious in some ways. And yeah, that's me playing devil's advocate, but at the same time, it's like nothing was really done by Rivera's offensive staff to highlight what this kid can do. It was, here's the offense, learn it, go perform.
Whoa.
Let me finish. Hold on. I'm going to give trust me.
Let the Washington fans speak on this, because I've heard this story from you before about Haskins.
I'm almost done. I just want to say this last thing. I just feel like he was given a raw deal. That's it. Period.
I mean, there's a lot to say here. Are you telling me that Justin walked straight onto that Tuesday podcast? I've been toiling on this podcast on Thursdays for 17 weeks, and he just walks onto the Tuesday podcast?
I believe an invite was sent to everyone to join me on Tuesday. Yeah, it really was. Neil, just to combat everything that James just said, I will say this about Dwayne Haskins. And from what I've heard is that, one, it's an immaturity thing for sure.
Mm-hmm.
2, he has a teammate, a former college teammate in Terry McLaurin, who's right there that's been trying to help him out as much as he possibly can. You got Chase Young, who's a young man, a rookie who's really stepped up in a leadership role, who's right there to help him out. To me, it doesn't seem like he's gotten a raw deal as much as there's no excuse for the way that he's behaved.
I think he's gotten a raw deal in the sense that he's just not talented.
I think. Well, I don't think that's right. I think you both have a bit of a point. I think he has got a bit of a raw deal because anybody who was drafted by Washington in the Snyder, Gruden, Bruce Allen era, that's straight away a raw deal. So he's had that when he came into the team, and of course all those guys left. He didn't really have anybody stepping up for him from the coaching part of the organization, and the coaches didn't have anything invested in him, so he was kind of here a bit of a raw deal that way. However, I mean, you just can't get over the fact that there's a guy who is out at a party, whatever it was, whether it was a club, whether it was his girlfriend's house, whatever it was, not wearing a mask when the guy who is your head coach has had cancer, and you just can't get over that. You can't. That's just. There's a line to draw there where you make stupid mistakes. But to go out to a party and not wear a mask when you know your coach is recovering from cancer and that could kill him, then I think that's a line you can't cross. I think they would have cut him immediately if they hadn't needed him on or thought they needed him on Sunday for the game. And so that's very difficult to overcome. I do wish him well. I mean, Kevin said he's not talented. The kid is a really talented passer of a football. He's just it's between the ears, he's got between the ears, his preparation. They've talked about his maturity and almost on a weekly basis. So he has huge issues there. If he could get that sorted out, and maybe he will do as he grows older, then he can do it. But don't dispute the fact that he can throw the ball, because that kid can throw the ball as well as anyone.
So could the last 5 quarterbacks out of Ohio State, my Scottish friend.
No, absolutely.
The J.T. Barrett, Cardell Jones, it's an absolute train wreck. Anybody who drafts at the front of the draft an Ohio State quarterback, take their head out of their bippy.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you, Doc. We talked about it last week, but you got to separate the physical traits which he has from the maturity issues, which he is an absolute train wreck. Of that, so I mean, he'll get picked up because he has that talent, and there's no question he'll get picked up.
One last 4:00 game that actually matters. It's the Seattle Seahawks at the San Francisco 49ers. The Seahawks are 5th. The 49ers are 19th. This game is actually being played in Arizona. The Seahawks are favored by 5.5 points in this one. There are seeding implications here. Expect a lot of blitzing. Over the last 7 games, the Seahawks have 31 sacks. Seattle's offense allows the 4th worst sack rate at 8% in football. The San Francisco Arizona XFLers have done admirable, but how much longer can they wait for Jimmy G to stay healthy for a full season? Could be rainy, a high of 57 for this particular game. I am going to take the Seahawks. Neil, who had to step away, is taking the 49ers. Everyone else is taking the Seahawks. How about you, Nick?
I know it's a cop-out answer of all of these. I would not be surprised if, but I still think you got to give it to the Seahawks. Although just the 49ers have just been so bizarrely frisky in these games, winning games and being competitive at games they have no business doing so, and the Seahawks are similarly inconsistent, but I do think the Seahawks just get her done and move on to the playoffs.
It was nice to have Justin on the Tuesday podcast. I was happy that he just walked on to it so that he could talk to us about the impact that Jamal Adams has had on the defense, and was it really just a Jamal Adams thing, or was it something more? And it does appear to be something more, at least according to Justin. So the Seahawks defense was terribly bad. They've gotten to be pretty good. The Niners are sort of just a shell of an actual NFL football team at this point, and yet they still compete. You got to give all the credit in the world to that coaching staff and Kyle Shanahan. And I will sit here and tell you, obviously I would love to see Jimmy Garoppolo back in New England. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think the San Francisco 49ers want to move on from Jimmy Garoppolo. All they do is win with him. They just need to keep him healthy. And that's the biggest question mark. Are these freak injuries, or is he injury prone?
Both, but their winning's really not on him. I mean, he does enough to allow them to win, but he's not the sole reason that they do win. I mean, his team is banged up across the board. I could go over the laundry list of players who are not playing on Sunday. It's probably going to make your head hurt, but first and foremost, Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel, neither one of them is going to be there. But yeah, it's not a Garoppolo thing, honestly. I think if they have a competent quarterback, and look, Mullins is not that guy. He's proven over the last 3-4 starts that he's had, they can't win with him. He turns the ball over too much. He's not reading defenses properly. He's making too many mistakes. He's taking too many sacks. He's putting them down in distances that's hard for this team to overcome. Remember, this is one of the few teams in the league that is run first. And they will do it on 1st and 10 or 3rd and 20. They will still run the football. They have a lot of, jet sweeps, gadget plays, reverses, any way to outflank the defense to get, their star players on the edge and the football in space. That's how this team wins. Competent quarterback play is secondary to this offense. It's not the main focal point. Garoppolo is probably the best quarterback on their roster, but I wouldn't say he's the guy that they absolutely have to have.
The spin of the QB carousel that I'd really like to see is Garoppolo. I mean, somewhere, maybe New England, that'd be fine. But Matt Ryan reunited with Shanahan in San Francisco, because that is a championship roster that is lacking a championship quarterback. A whole lot of narratives would be a little bit different if Jimmy Garoppolo hits that, that one deep pass in the fourth quarter of the Super Bowl and they actually hold on and win. I think when a little bit healthier, this roster is kind of back there if they had an actual good quarterback.
They do have an actual good quarterback. You guys are crazy. The Matt Ryan going back to Kyle Shanahan narrative is certainly getting louder and louder. Certainly what's getting louder is Kyle Shanahan getting the quarterback that he wants. Some are saying Kyle Shanahan didn't really want Jimmy Garoppolo.
What?
It was more of a John Lynch thing than Kyle Shanahan thing. I don't know about that. I'm not going to necessarily buy into that narrative, but listen, the Niners, I think, have shown that they will play the XFLers. They've put up decent win total for what is a shell of an NFL team. And if they can stay healthy, Doc, you've mentioned it before, Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk, those two wide receivers are extremely talented and are the stir that draws the drink, the straw that stirs the drink.
That part.
But they also can't stay healthy. Maybe they need a better, health and wellness guy in the background.
Yeah, true.
They're blaming the Meadowlands for a long time of this season.
That's right. They did have to play there twice. All right,
back-to-back weeks.
We're all taking the Seahawks. Nick wouldn't be surprised. Neil's taking the Niners. Maybe he'll come back for this Sunday night football game.
Soleil's defense is now, by most quality metrics, 6th in the NFL. They're doing a lot with tape and glue, and I got my hats off to him. I hope he ends up in the right spot as a head coach. I think he's one of the guys. I'm not all about these who's got the most talent, therefore, who's the hot offensive coordinator, who's the flavor of the month, into a massive bricklayer failure. It's just, look beyond that. I think Soleil's got this team on the defensive end playing at a high caliber for the talent that's on the field. An old man, Richard Sherman, he may be gone, but there's enough talent there. And further pod, I will tell you, he's better than average quarterback, but the team's got to be healthy. He's got to have that functional rollout offense, high quarterback rating, good completion. But here's where they were winning with Garoppolo: explosive plays. And there's nothing there as a pattern because they're so damn injured. You don't know what you got. They may just wipe the slate clean, I think. but that's for off season to talk about. So,
final injury reports here. You mentioned Richard Sherman. He's out for this week as well. For the Seahawks, Quentin Dunbar goes on IR, and Trey Flowers is coming off IR.
All right, Sunday Night Football. Neil has rejoined us to talk about this game. The Washington football team is at the Philadelphia Eagles. Washington 17th in the power rankings. Philadelphia is 28th. Washington favored by 2. And obviously, as we've discussed throughout this podcast, the Washington football team needs to win the NFC least and thus go to the playoffs. Philadelphia has allowed a league worst 62 sacks. No other team has given up more than 48. Washington is 6th defensively in sacks.
We're number
with 44. As James has said all year, Philadelphia averages 5.1 yards per attempt, which is second best in the league. So just run the damn ball. Rain and a low of 37 is the current forecast for Philadelphia. So weather should be a factor in this one, Neil.
Yeah, first of all, I really apologise on behalf of Washington that this has been put to the primetime game on Sunday night. I mean, what's that all about? Jeez. Talk about having a terrible 2020. I mean, this is going to be a game where, Philadelphia run the ball, and Washington is not the greatest team at stopping the run. They're great at stopping the pass with their pass rush and so. But I really think both these NFC East games, the Cowboys and Giants, and here Washington and Philly, I think the home teams will win, which I think probably means that the Giants would end up as the team winning the division. And I don't think, looking over the course of the season, Washington winning the NFC East would be a bit of a joke, and the same with the Eagles. So. But then again, same with the Cowboys and probably the same with the Giants. Who knows? They'll probably go in and win the Super Bowl. Washington, McLaurin is unlikely to play this game. He's got a high ankle sprain. Smith is likely to start the game. So that he will start. That's a bit of a bonus. But I don't think we can probably keep up with what's been an improved Philadelphia offense in recent weeks since Church came in. But I mean, I wish James. I don't wish hurt on James. Just lots of pain. So hopefully we'll win the game.
I do think it's interesting that both superfans have taken the other's team. Neil, you have taken Philadelphia, and James, you have taken Washington.
That's because we both know our teams are terrible. I think that comes from
basically. Neil, the sentiment is definitely mutual as far as lots of pain. But yeah, McLaurin is doubtful. Alex Smith is questionable, but Taylor Heineke is taking first team reps today in practice. That was just announced across the screens here. And you mentioned Philadelphia's run game. It's a nice thing to talk about. I just wish the head coach would realize that's a thing he can do after the first quarter. And Kevin will attest to this, having probably watched the entire game last week. I pretty much started puking at halftime. But in the first quarter, Philly went up 14-3 because they ran the football and basically had an 80-yard pass to Deshaun Jackson. In the second quarter, they decided to get cute and wanted to do all these, crossing 5 players in the route, double tight end, 3 wide receiver sets. And I don't think that Miles Sanders got more than 4 snaps, not touches, 4 snaps in the second quarter of that game, in which Dallas roared back to take a 20-14 lead going into halftime, or 17 lead going into halftime.
On a positive sense, James. On a positive sense, I mean,
there's nothing positive if your head coach stops running the ball after he goes up 10 points.
Who are these 2 young receivers I saw playing on Sunday for the first time this year? A Jackson and a Jeffrey. Who were they?
Oh man, yeah. I wish they were
Deshaun
brand new guys who hadn't seen all season.
Where was Deshaun after that 80-yard bomb? He was invisible the rest of the game.
He's getting oxygen.
Yeah, he was most of it. and this is why I said 10, 12 weeks ago, neither of these guys should be mentioned in conjunction with the Philadelphia Eagles going forward, because Jeffrey's just stealing reps from Fulgham, who's the better wide receiver right now at this point in their careers, because Jeffrey can't stay healthy. And Jackson pretty much gets his 180-yard touchdown catch, and he's inept for the rest of the game. The rationale that Doug Peterson put out in his Monday press conference was that they were monitoring his conditioning and his snaps, and whatever injury he had coming into the game, they were making sure it wasn't getting worse, but I guess it was tightening up on him as the game went along. So supposedly he played 4 more snaps after that play. I didn't see it.
What's Fletcher Cox status for this upcoming week? He left the game last week.
Yeah, that's the big one, isn't it?
Who?
Fletcher Cox.
Fletcher Cox.
Well, Fletcher Cox has a neck stinger, and that's why that was a questionable injury going into the game. It got aggravated during the game. He's not listed on the injury report this week, but I expect if something similar happens, you can expect the same result. So he's questionable again. He'll play as long as the injury allows him to play, but if he leaves for any reason whatsoever, this defense is going to fall apart. And that's why I picked Washington, because pretty much the defense couldn't do jack squat as far as getting pressure against Dallas's quarterback last week once Cox left the game. And I know that Derek Barnett didn't play and Josh Sweat didn't play, but still, Vinnie Curry, Brandon Graham, Hargrave, Malik Jackson, those are 4 studs that should not have any problem collectively getting to the quarterback, and they couldn't do it. Graham had 1 sack late only because Andy Dalton had a brain fart and probably forgot what the play was. But outside of that, there was 0 pressure on the quarterback. And look, yeah, the Eagles' offensive line is banged up, and Washington's front 4 is going to chase after Hurts. If Doug Peterson had half a brain cell working, and look, there have been rumblings that there's discontent between him and the front office. 1, his job is safe. There's nothing to worry about there. 2, there need to be wide sweeping changes across this organization from front office to personnel going into next season. Half this roster should not be here next year. But I need him to commit to running the football and protecting Jalen Hurts. Stop calling 50 pass plays because you think these things look great on paper and I just want to test this kid's arm out and see what he's got. No, try to win a football game. Run the ball. Don't let Washington celebrate a division title on your field.
Kevin, I got to imagine it feels weird to be a Philadelphia Eagles fan this week.
No, not really. You do what you got to do. But, I wouldn't be actually disappointed if the Eagles lost because I don't really want the Giants to win the division. And as I said, I know that the Cowboys are going to lose. So, I might not even watch football on Sunday.
Probably better for your health.
Doc, you are going with the Philadelphia Eagles too.
Yeah. Just, I don't know why. I'll tell you no. I got a call yesterday, believe it or not, from a chef at the White House. And ironically, my Eagles friend, he was the head chef for the Philadelphia Eagles for a lot of years. So maybe that's why I picked the Eagles.
Well, that's fascinating.
And listen, if you don't want to watch football on the weekend, at least cook. I
appreciate it.
I got a great dessert recipe for you that will get you chicks. So,
can you please email it to me so I can have my girlfriend make it for me?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Nice.
Nick, who you got? Washington or Philly?
I would like to take Washington, but I think I have to go with Philly. I mean, the Washington offensive output is just so. I'm trying to find a properly pathetic adjective. Maybe that is what the adjective I'm looking for. And so without Terry McLaurin, with an even more banged up Alex Smith, especially if Cox can play, I just don't see how that team scores much. And the
defense.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, if they can win like they won, a couple weeks ago with a couple of pick sixes or something, then sure. But barring that, I find it hard just to pick Washington in this spot.
One more thing on this game, James, and then we can move on to the games that don't matter. Jalen Hurts, is he the future of your team, or is another quarterback the future of your team?
I honestly have no idea. Doug Peterson's play calling leaves much to be desired all season. And for as well as Hurts played against the Saints in the win, and even for about 3.5 quarters against the Cardinals despite the loss, it looked like Doug Peterson had finally, I don't know, his brain started working. He pulled it out of his rear end, and because the running game was actually an effective part. And then last week, he's like, we're just not going to run the ball anymore. And counting on the 50-plus yard run from Miles Sanders every week is not the way to win. Like, clipping him at 15 carries and then not running the ball anymore, that's not helping. Because it doesn't matter what the score is. It can be close, like it was against Arizona, or it can be a complete blowout. He just refuses to run the football after the first quarter. And that's something that needs to happen.
Well, it's going to be great when Carson Wentz and Odell Beckham Jr. are on my Patriots team. It'll be fantastic.
Have at it.
We'll have a great team finally. It'll be great. All right, and now it's time for the games that don't matter. It is the Atlanta Falcons at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Falcons are 27th. The Bucs are 6th. They are favored by 6.5 points, but the Bucs are locked into the 5th seed in the playoffs, whether they win or lose. So it doesn't matter if they play starters or not. The Bucs have allowed 21 sacks. That is third fewest in football, but a lot of that has to do with one Tom Brady, whom I suspect won't play, although as we heard on the vaunted Tuesday podcast, Bruce Arians, actually we didn't hear this, but Bruce Arians did mention that he is very much aware of Mike Evans and the total number of yards he needs to set a Buccaneers record, and he very much wants Mike Evans to get that record. So I would suspect the starters are going to play probably the first half, get Mike Evans his numbers that he needs to get, and then they'll sit everybody down in the second half. So
and on the flip side, Raheem Morris is probably aware of that as well and will adjust his defense accordingly. So anybody but Mike Evans can catch a pass.
So we shall see how this game goes, but I suspect we're going to see a lot of backups for the Bucs, at least in the second half. And so this is one of those games where if you have to bet it, I feel sorry for you. Please get some help. Avoid this game with everything that you have. There's no reason to bet on this game. Most of us are going to take the Buccaneers. James is taking the Falcons. You've been on the Falcons bandwagon here for the last few weeks, James.
I've been on Raheem Morris's bandwagon for the last couple of weeks. Look, he's done a great job. Every single win has come under him. Yeah, they've had some questionable losses, whatever, but basically Raheem Morris is, I think a 500 head coach since taking over the squad, if I'm not mistaken. So, I mean.
Does he belong in Atlanta, though? I think he deserves a coaching job. I just don't think it's Atlanta.
He does deserve a coaching job. He definitely deserves serious consideration for any coaching job. If he doesn't get one, like I said, he will be someone's defensive coordinator, whether that's in one of the spots that has a head coach opening. I expect one of them will bring him in. They've been competitive more times than not this season. So
he's going to be an HC. He's going to be a head coach. There's no question about it. As I told you guys last week, I'm not name dropping, but one of my buddies is one of the top NFL analysts in the world, and he said unequivocally that Raheem Morris is on top 2 on most lists currently. And if that changes between now and the end of week 17, it'll shock me. He's done enough. You're right. I don't know if James, you said it, but I don't know if Atlanta's the place, or Pod, was that you?
That was me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you could be right. But he'll get a nod somewhere.
Well,
I think the Falcons are in a position
in Atlanta.
Well, I was just going to say the Falcons are in a position to hit the reset button.
Yeah.
And if you got that opportunity, hit it. Hit the reset button now. Don't let it drag on for 2 or 3 years when Raheem Morris, is trying to build this team and it's still not working. Like, let Raheem Morris move on and rebuild from scratch.
Did MJ send in anything this week?
Oh, MJ did, as a matter of fact. He's the only one that did. I appreciate that, MJ. Congrats on you. You keep your super fandom as we move forward into the new year. I'm not going to – he wrote up a pregame write-up. I'm not going to read that. But I will read his State of the Falcons. As we end the 2020 regular season, we look back at the Falcons. When it comes to the current status of the Dirty Birds, it's easy to say that the last few seasons have been a disaster. The last time we had a really good season was 2017 when we went 10-6. That was the season after we lost the Super Bowl. So what is different about the Dirty Birds now versus then? Our offensive coordinator, Kyle Shanahan, left after the Super Bowl lost, and the 2017 season, we were coasting on a lot of what he put in place. Now you can say what you want about his coaching style, but he knew how to squeeze the talent out of the Dirty Birds. Ever since then, we have not had a winning season. Well, we just talked about Kyle Shanahan, the way he's coaching up the 49ers. So that's all in check. So what needs to happen with the Dirty Birds? The culture in the front office has got to change. The new GM and new head coach have got to be willing to draft players that put your foot on their throat mentality, something that Dirty Birds have never had. We really need a GM who knows how to draft and a coach who knows how to get the most out of their players. And quite honestly, I think everyone under the owner needs to be replaced. Everyone is responsible for what happens, not just the GM and head coach. I hope it doesn't mean like the accountants and the ticket takers. I mean, no.
Janitors.
What do I want for the Dirty Birds? I want everyone in the front office replaced. I want people who eat, sleep, and poop football. He didn't say poop. I want people who constantly have multiple feeds of football-related news coming into their purview constantly. I want people who love the Dirty Birds as much as I do and will work night and day to make the organization respectable. Well, it sounds like, MJ, you want Pod Vader for your GM. I agree.
No.
I would be a fantastic general manager for your team, and I am available. What do I need to see next season? I need to see a new general manager and head coach that makes sense for the organization and have some good working chemistry. I need to see the two of them make some moves during the draft and free agency and get some players on this team who play smash mouth football. I need to see the moves that the team make change the way the Dirty Birds are talked about on the national stage. Can that change in a year? Who knows? But I need to see moves being made to make it happen. It's not going to happen in a year. That is 100% for sure. But smash mouth football, that's interesting. There's not a lot of players these days coming out of the college ranks that play that type of physical football. Everyone's moving more towards the air raid spread offense. You know, it's becoming more of a finesse game these days. The rules are making it more of a finesse game.
Yeah, but there's still some teams that are just not going to let smash mouth go.
That might be the case, but those types of players are hard to find. So I'm not going to fault the general manager for not being able to bring in a whole group of players to play that kind of football. I mean, the other thing, we talk about injuries with the 49ers. The Falcons have a bunch of talented guys that can't stay healthy either. Keanu Neal, Deion Bush stayed healthy for most of the season this year, but he's a guy that, hasn't been able to be relied on in the past. I mean,
Julio Jones has missed several games.
Yeah. I mean, they've got injury issues in Atlanta, too.
Yeah.
But they're primarily made up of, the offensive line. There's a whole bunch of number one draft picks that have been below 50%. They got a lot of average everywhere. I think they start over. Being in the same division, I want a competitive Falcons team because I like Arthur Blank. Why? We should all like him because he kept his stadium food prices down at value level. And he's always has my respect because that's about food and sports, which is what I live for. So, but I think Pod, you'd be a great GM for them. But this smash mouth crap that we keep talking about is about as much a fallacy as I had to hear Cam Newton say, I go in at 5 a.m. and come home at 11. It does nothing for your brain. This sleep 4 hours a day and eat and breathe football and hit him in the mouth. It's so 1970. Stop it. The whole league is built around the pass. And if they're not going to keep Matt Ryan, if they're going to bring in a new quarterback, bring in a new coach. Right.
So the Falcons at 4-11, where would they draft if the draft were held today?
I believe top 10 still.
I think they are in the top 10. I'm trying to find a draft order here. If I can find one. Well, it's not going to. Anyway. I could. Let's do this. League percentage. Boom. All right. Right now, the Falcons would draft third. So you got the Jaguars that are going to take Trevor Lawrence. You got the Jets, whom, depending on who they bring in,
they're going to move.
Probably not going to take a quarterback there. So now you got the Falcons. So the Falcons will have their choice of quarterbacks. Too bad Neil's not here for this conversation. He's the top guy on the draft stuff, but I mean, I do not want. I will tell you this: from what I've seen of the quarterbacks, I do not want Justin Fields. Any other team can have Justin Fields. Go right ahead.
Amen, brother.
Go right ahead with that. So that would leave them with Zach Wilson or that Trey Lance character.
He's good. Zach Wilson's good too.
And that's if they go the quarterback route. I mean, Matt Ryan's still got at least a few good years in him. There's no reason to move on from Matt Ryan other than you're hitting the complete reset button.
Right.
All right. We don't need to do injuries on any of these games, James, because these games
we're not doing injuries on any of these games. No.
The Minnesota Vikings are at the Detroit Lions. The Vikings are 22nd. The Lions are 30th. The Vikings are favored by 7. I have a whole bunch of stats here about Dalvin Cook, but Neil informed me right before we started recording that Dalvin Cook's not playing in this game.
No, his father passed away, so he's traveled to Miami to be with his family. He will, and because of protocols set in place because of COVID, he will not be eligible to play in the game on Sunday.
That's too bad.
So condolences to Dalvin Cook and the Cook family.
Yes. Alexander Madison becomes a fantasy pickup if your team is foolish enough to play Week 17 games or DFS for that particular matter, because the stat still holds that Detroit's defense has allowed the most rushing touchdowns this year at 25. Minnesota also averaging 8.1 yards per attempt, second best in football. And while Dalvin Cook is obviously a great talent, the obvious offensive line blocking certainly helps Dalvin Cook in that regard. So my question would be, what the heck happened to Minnesota? Why is Minnesota in a game that doesn't matter?
Kirk Cousins. Excuse me.
Kirk Cousins has been your thorn in your side for like 3 years now. I mean, Kirk Cousins has proven to not. I mean, yes, Kirk Cousins had a bad year this year for sure, but he's not always been a bad quarterback.
Okay, so remember what I said when he was going into free agency from Washington, like he had those back-to-back years, and, you know, Neil was trying to find a case for Washington to hold on to him, and I kept saying the same thing. The stats always look pretty, but they don't win.
Yes.
See how that's translated here to Minnesota? I mean, yeah, they got to the playoffs last year. They won a game and then got blown out by the Niners the next week. But aside from that, the year before and now, records are pretty much the same. So, again, Kirk Cousins, he's like, to steal from Doc, he's like, you know, the girl you reluctantly asked to prom. She looks pretty on prom night, but before and after, it's like, who's that?
I will again defend Kirk Cousins, and yes, it's
you can defend
statistically.
Kirk Cousins because
I've allowed you to go on this Kirk Cousins stuff for long enough, my friend. 32 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. That's not bad. It's not an offense problem. The Minnesota Vikings record is not to do with their offense. It's all about their defense.
Okay.
They allowed 29.3 points per game, allowed 391.7 yards per game. This is all on the defensive side of the ball. The offense has nothing to do with it. Dalvin Cook leads the league in rushing touchdowns, has over 1,500 yards. Justin Jefferson is about to break the rookie receiving record, or is close to at least being up there, maybe number 2, I think.
I agree.
So this is not an offense problem. This is all about the defense. And I believe Mike Zimmer is a defensive coach.
Mike Zimmer said it's the worst defense he's ever fielded, right?
Oh, please understand, 2 years ago they were 8-7-1.
Fair.
And we're not going to talk about how he finished up in Washington with those horrible 7-9 years.
I think his last full year, calendar year, has been his best, including a quality win in New Orleans. I think he's shed a lot of the labels he had previously at the front end of that contract. Number one, the front end of the contract itself was a black guy, right? So he's already, we're already handicapping the conversation about him just with the contract he signed. But I see him, and you know how I felt. The Vikings have been the nemesis of the Saints, and it's cost us a couple of times, but I don't find him that bad. And Pro Football Focus agrees. His last 12 months, he's been in the mid to high 80s. And I think the reason he has found a way to get the ball to Jefferson, making him one of the top offensive rookies of the year. He's already becoming one of the top wideouts in the NFL. And part of that is Kirk Cousins. So
too soon, Doc. Too soon.
Yeah, I know. But I think part of that is Cousins. And you're right. The defense was decimated. They lost all their DBs. They lost some of the front end there. Griffin, everybody. You're right, Pod. It's the defense. I don't think it's been much Cousins. He's not been the blemish on that franchise. It's the defense.
On the other side, the Detroit Lions, we all know they're going through a complete reset. A lot of talk about Matthew Stafford being available. A lot of talk about Matthew Stafford being available, but as I look at the current draft order, the Lions would be picking 9th, and you're not getting a quarterback at number 9. So,
right.
Maybe. I don't know. I mean, we already talked about the Jaguars and the Falcons. You've got I guess none of the other teams, the Giants, Panthers, Bengals, Eagles, Texans, Falcons. I don't know. I guess they're not. I don't know. But I think if you move on from Matthew Stafford, the first question you got to ask yourself is you're moving on to whom? And if it's a guy in the draft, then you're going to have to trade with the Jets to get the guy that you want, because you're not getting Trevor Lawrence. And if you're not going to trade with the Jets to get that guy, then you're probably not going to get a guy in the draft to move forward with.
There's sneakily a ton of quarterbacks that are likely to hit the market next year, because you have established guys on rebuilding teams. You have a fair amount of free agents and stuff like that. I think it's going to all come down to just who their next head coach is or the next GM is. It's just it's going to be whoever this new guy coming in. Do you like Matt Stafford? No. Who do you like? We'll go get him. Because with Stafford, it's like I think the talent's always been there, but he can't. Like a lot of these guys can't keep healthy, unfortunately, and so and he's not a fit for every system necessarily. So we'll just have to see.
We're all taking the Vikings except for Neil, who's taking the Detroit Lions. The New York Jets are at the New England Patriots. Now is the time to. Oh, too bad Neil's gone. Can't unleash all his New England Patriots stuff. Jets.
Lock in the Jets.
Jets are 31st. The Patriots are 23rd. The Patriots are favored by 3. My son, this is my proud father moment. My son and I got together and we're like, Cam Newton has been historically bad. And we're like, well, wait, has he really been historically bad?
How historically bad has he been?
Well, the question was, is he really been historically bad, or is it just something that people have been saying? And so we did the research. We went and we were like, how bad is 8 passing touchdowns the entire season? By the way, 8 passing touchdowns is the team total. Patriots have thrown only 8 touchdowns this season. The fewest points in the season was done by the 1992 Seattle Seahawks, who scored only 140 points. They only had 1,778 passing yards on the season. They only threw 9 touchdowns the entire year, with Stan Gelbaugh, who had 6 in 8 starts, and Kelly Stauffer, who had 3 in 7 starts. Dan McGuire had none in the 1 start that he started. That's pretty bad. The 1992 Seattle Seahawks.
Oh my gosh, that's when they were in the AFC West.
The fewest offensive touchdowns, by the way, this is total. Fewest offensive touchdowns since 1943 was the 77 Bucks, who only scored 7 offensive touchdowns. Now, mind you, only 14 games at that particular point. Gary Huff played in 8 games, started 6, and threw only 3 touchdowns. So they only, right now, Gary Huff would be the guy who has the fewest touchdowns. However, if you want to look at volume, Cam Newton only has 5 passing touchdowns in 14 starts. Jarrett Stidham has 2 touchdowns in 4 appearances. He has not started a game, and we don't know if he's starting this week or not. Jacoby Myers has 1 touchdown on a trickeration play. PM showers and a high of 42 forecasted for New England. Now, I had said going into this game that there was a possibility the Patriots were going to have to lose to the Jets to guarantee that the Jaguars ended up with the number 1 pick. The Jets fixed that for us by beating the Browns last week. There's no way in hell Belichick loses to the Jets, no matter how bad his team is. Patriots are the lock this week. They will beat the Jets. No matter how terrible they are, they will find a way to destroy the Jets because that is what they do. And Belichick will not allow this team to lose to the Jets. This team is full of
last
J.J.
time you said the Jets, you only won by 3. So how are you going to destroy a team that you struggled with last time?
Because we'll destroy them. We will destroy their souls is how we're going to do it.
Pod, don't you think there's a lot of year first? I mean, until Monday night, he hadn't lost to a division opponent twice in the same year. There's a lot of new firsts here because
it's 2000.
Yeah.
He lost to the Bill. The Bills swept him in 2000.
That's 20 years ago. Right.
So, right. Well, and then Tom Brady was on the player in 2001. Listen, they are not losing to the Jets. They will not. Belichick cannot allow himself to lose to the Jets. There's way too much history between Belichick and the Jets that he's not going to allow that to happen. Now,
lock in the Jets.
As I teased at the beginning of the show, the problem with the Patriots this season is the fact that we've been talking about hitting the reset button. Last offseason, I said the Patriots need to rip the Band-Aid off and just do a complete reset. And then when COVID hit, there was even more reason to just hit that reset button. Just let everyone go. Let the McCourties go. Let anybody left on the team that didn't opt out go. Because COVID gave you the absolute opportunity to do that. And it wasn't I wanted them to tank. It's that now is the time that you start the rebuild. But what he did was he half-assed it. He half-assed the rebuild, and he kept a bunch of the veterans on this team that he should not have kept on. He should not have held on to those guys this year because he gave us that false sense of hope by getting a cheap contract that you can't pass up $1 million a year for a former league MVP. No matter what. Cam Newton becomes available, he's going to sign for $1 million. You can't pass that up. So, of course, you're going to give him the shot. But the problem is he should have. He shouldn't have given Cam Newton a shot. He's destroyed this team. This team has shown no improvement this year. And so the complete reset button has to be hit for next season. It just has to. You just can't move forward with the team as it's currently constructed because they've shown no improvement whatsoever this year. And I can't see any improvement based on the way the team is currently constructed for next year. They got to do a complete rebuild of this team. And that's where I'm at.
All right, Bob, hold on. I know you're not done with your rant because you'll say more later on. But let's spin it. Let's spin it forward a couple of years. Say they do everything they need to do this off season, turn things around. They're at a respectable 10-6, maybe 11-5, and for the sake of argument here, let's just say they make the playoffs as a wild card instead of division champs. Just say it's just a wild card. And Belichick decides, I'm done. Do you really have faith in Josh McDaniel? Because, I'm looking at, he's had multiple years of Tom Brady. Then he was responsible for Tim Tebow in Denver. He had Cam Newton. The offense, look, despite lack of talent, the offense didn't even look like an actual NFL offense this year. And to say that they struggle putting up points is a gross understatement. Is McDaniel really the guy, though?
So I'm glad you bring that up, James, because while, yes, Cam Newton can't throw a ball to save his life, and it looks like he's struggling every time he does throw the football, every single time, the play calling has certainly not helped. And looking at that Bills game, the Patriots were dominating the run game. They had 140 rushing yards in the first half of that particular game. They actually were competitive for a good portion of the first half of that game against the Bills because they were able to run the ball. But the play calling didn't accentuate that or take advantage of that point. There was no play action calls. There were no screen passes, the wonderful screen passes that we see all the time with this New England Patriot team, right? They're known for throwing screens left and right. No screen passes. Every wide receiver who's not an actual wide receiver, at least not NFL quality wide receiver, running intermediate to deep routes, no short routes, nothing for the quarterback to get rid of the ball quickly, to take on the oncoming blitz. And even when Jarrett Stidham came in, it was still the same thing. There were no short routes for him to dump off when there was an engage 8, James, to use your terms. Engage 8 was happening like on every passing down against Jarrett Stidham, and Stidham had no one to throw the ball to because he had no one to dump the ball off to. And that's on the coach, and that's on Josh McDaniels. So, yes, I do not have any confidence in Josh McDaniels as the future head coach of the New England Patriots whatsoever. But I do have faith in Bill Belichick. I don't think Belichick's going away anytime soon. He wants the all-time wins record, and he's unfortunately this year really set him back. But he's got about 5 or 6 years to get to that number. It's going to be tough. I think he can do it.
It's going to be real tough winning 6 games a year.
Well, if he is winning 6 games a year, then he probably won't make it. But if he can get that total up to 9 to 10, he can get there in less than 6 years. So we'll see. Obviously the Jets are resetting. And again, it's a shame that Neil's not here. Nick, you'll have to play the part of Neil. Can the Jets move forward with Sam Darnold?
I wouldn't if I were them, unless, again, kind of like with the Lions, if you bring in a coach who just happens to love Sam Darnold, it's like, well, that's easy. Then we'll keep him around because he is under contract for another year. So there's no reason just to cut him for nothing. If you get an offer you can't refuse, you get rid of him. And if the coach likes him, you keep him. But otherwise, I would say, they lean finding something for him. And, but, everything comes down to them making the right actual coaching moves this time around. I mean, Gase was fatal for them for 2 years. There's going to be teams out there, or at least candidates out there. I mean, and it's just, I don't trust them to actually make the right hire there, and I don't think they're an attractive enough spot to get some of the top guys. So, we'll just see.
All right. You guys have all taken the Jets. How dare you? Are you taking the Jets too, Nick?
Yes, largely for comedic reasons.
Yeah. Okay.
There you go. Yeah. Lock them in while you're at it.
Yeah. I laugh at all of you. The Las Vegas Raiders are taking on the Denver Broncos. The Raiders are 16th. The Broncos are 25th. Raiders favored by 2.5 in this one. Raiders have scored on 49% of their offensive drives, which is second only to the Bills. Denver has thrown 23 interceptions, 5 more than anybody else in the league. Weather will be surprisingly nice in Denver, sunny and 53. I am going to take the Raiders. I know that they haven't ended their season the way that they wanted to end their season, but there's flashes, and they're still better than the Broncos. Nick, you're a AFC West rep. What do you say?
I say they tie.
Good. That's good.
Oh, man.
The thing is with Gruden's teams, they haven't just ended this season poorly. I've seen some stats that it's been bad the last couple of times around, and even going back to his Tampa days, they had since the Super Bowl, he's basically lost the majority of his November and December games. They just keep falling apart. And on the same level, I mean, if you're looking at which of these teams has something to really play for, I think it's kind of just the quarterbacks. I mean, Derek Carr, we talk about a lot on the Slack, Monty is convinced that he's, the car's not the problem and he's not going anywhere. We'll see. And similarly, Drew Lock has to prove that they have to show something for the Broncos to have any confidence that he should be a part of the picture next year. And so with that in mind, I think I wouldn't be surprised if they both play poorly. It's just, but yeah, I'm just going to call it a tie. It's going to be somehow going to be a loss for both.
So I will say this about that. Derek Carr, 3,732 yards, 25 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, a 102.2 rating. Drew Lock missed a couple games in there, 2,594 yards, 14 touchdowns, 15 interceptions, a 72.5. Lock has definitely flashed. You can see that there's some potential, but I think Drew Lock is probably at best a good backup quarterback for somebody. Derek Carr, I agree with Monty. Derek Carr is not the problem in LA.
John Gruden is.
It's the same thing with Kirk Cousins. You know, he may not be the problem, but he's like anti-clutch. It's, you know, he wins games when everything else around him works. And, you know, and he'll look good in those scenarios or against bad teams. He loses games against good teams, or if the running game isn't working or something else isn't happening. Like he can't put the team on his shoulders. And so it's just, you know, how much money and how much time do you want to spend keeping that guy as the face of your franchise?
And purgatory, right? That's like, I use the term purgatory. Sorry to interject. He kind of puts him in purgatory. It's like Matt Stafford. I hate to use that term, the prettiest Denny's waitress. Big deal. Can he get you Lil Lombardi? No. Right? At this point, no. Gruden, by the way, his stock, you know, let's take the gloss off and his whole quarterback film room crap and his years on TV. And overall, he has crapped the bed end of the season. It's a trend. And they got to look, and they're stuck with 10 years, 100 million, whatever it was. Mm-hmm. Stupid contract from owner Pencilhead there. I just, at this point, I think that both of these teams, you're right. I wouldn't 0-0. Why not? They're both in purgatory because Nelson Aguilar may not stick around. He's got an all-world tight end, a really good running back, a substandard head coach, and a substandard defense. Welcome to vanilla ice cream. Who cares?
Mm. And they've
like vanilla ice cream is awesome,
trying to build that defense.
What'd you say about vanilla ice cream, James?
Vanilla ice cream is awesome.
Yeah.
So we will not be slandering vanilla ice cream. It's wonderful. Yeah, okay. You can do almost anything with it.
Yeah. Hey, you know that fried fruit cranberry relish I gave you guys for the holidays? It is fabulous on real vanilla ice cream. My girlfriend will attest.
Just prove my point. Yeah. But no, the Raiders, this defense, and look, we're probably going to harp on this. There is little talent on this defense, and you know, firing the coordinator with 4 games left on a short week didn't help. It's probably a move that probably should have been done after week 4, not week 13. But they've got to get something infused into this defense. They have to do a better job at finding those prospects in the draft. Look, we still clown them for trading Khalil Mack to Chicago and Gruden coming out saying we need a pass rush. You know, it doesn't help when you traded your pass rush to another team, but they got to do something about this defense going forward. And, you know, the front seven is probably not the front seven of the future that they currently have. But offensively, I don't see problems on the offense. Jacobs can be arguably one of the best backs in the league. They have talent on the outside. It's not world class, but it suits the system well. Stud tight end. Carr plays, you know, as everyone said, he plays phenomenal against the poor teams and plays subpar against the good teams. He's got to fix that. He's got to beat some of the better teams in the league, or at least be competitive in those games. I mean, yeah, you beat the Chiefs this year, and it's kind of like that with their Super Bowl, and they've been wildly inconsistent ever since.
On the Denver Broncos side, I'm sure Vic Fangio is going to get a pass on his first season here. You know, it's the COVID year, but they really haven't looked all that great on offense, haven't looked great on defense. Yes, they're going to get some guys back, but I mean, those guys coming back, Von Miller is another year older and coming off of a major year-ending injury. So while you got talent coming back for next season, you still have a lot of work to do. To me, the Broncos are not a team that has an arrow pointed up. at best, that arrow is pointed sideways. And if you're finishing the year at 5-10 or 5-11, I don't know if you want your arrow pointed sideways.
Here's a question. Is this it for Elway?
That's an interesting question.
It should have been it for Elway years ago. I mean, congratulations, he wooed Peyton Manning to come there, but every quarterback he's drafted up until Locke, and, the book is still out on Locke, every quarterback he's acquired or drafted between Elway and Locke has been a dumpster fire. Brock Osweiler, Trevor Simeon. Who else was there? I mean, these are all names that pretty much, and you see I'm struggling, these are forgettable names that you try to forget even played in the NFL. Even the acquisitions, Case Keenum he had for a little bit, didn't do much with him. Pretty much ended his career by being in Denver. It's like Denver's now, the Siberia for quarterbacks. If you're a veteran quarterback and you're looking to rejuvenate your career, don't go to Denver. Your career is pretty much over.
All right, so we know where Cam Newton's going next season. That's fantastic.
Wow.
Oh, that would be paint drying. Oh, my God, that would be
look, Denver does have talent on their offense. So, I mean, yeah, they need more than a quarterback, though. But they do have some young talent. It's young, though.
Judy will be a good one. Noah Fant will be a good one.
Hamler.
Hamler, their backfield.
KJ Hamler. Yeah.
Tim Patrick showed up this year. Tim Patrick should be good. So, I mean, you're right. They have some young wide receivers. If they can find a quarterback who can actually throw them the ball, then that'd be good.
I think they get a free agent QB. I don't know who it'll be, or they make a trade. I'd like to see out there is Stafford.
I was going to say, if Elway is still there, I'm sure that Stafford is the guy he's got targeted.
Yeah.
If Elway is still there, they won't be picking up a new quarterback. He believes in Drew Lock.
Last game, the Los Angeles Chargers are at the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chargers 18th in the power rankings. Chiefs are 1. Literally nothing to see in this game. Only item would be if the Chiefs want to tie the Packers with the best record post Super Bowl victory. Nick, are they playing to get that record, or are they just resting their starters?
I don't think so. Reed was coy about it when asked earlier this week, but I did just see a report that Patrick Mahomes is not going to play. And I would think if you're resting Mahomes, you're probably resting everybody. The only real notion would be to maybe we'll just have the starters for a drive or two, like a preseason game, just to just demonstrate that we're in sync going into the playoffs, especially considering they haven't been in great sync the last few weeks. So it's a little confidence builder, yep, okay, we know what we're doing. My only thing I wanted to see was I would just like them to, try to do something to pad Travis Kelce's stats just a little bit. I mean, he already broke the single season tight end receiving yards record. But the one thing that would be kind of cool for him is that he is 43 yards shy of being the NFL receiving leader. And it's never been a tight end before. However, that he's 43 yards behind Stephon Diggs, who is playing in a meaningful game. So I don't know that there's anything that would get Kelce up there, but just to throw some Kelce love. I mean, I was looking at his stats to seeing how old. I was this is already just such an insane season for him. He has, he's tied for the most 20 plus yard plays. He's got, and this is among not just tight ends, this is all receivers. He has 10 more first downs than any other receiver in the league. Just wild stuff. And this is only marginally better than literally the last 5 Kelce seasons. Just crazy. But yeah, no, I don't expect the Chiefs to really play starters. And who knows, maybe the B team can still win it. There've actually been a few competitive KC Chargers Week 17 games where the Chiefs were resting everybody in the last few years. And I think it'll still be a vaguely entertaining game.
I mean, I've been trying to stump for Anthony Lynn to keep his job there in LA, but I think the whispers are getting louder and louder that Anthony Lynn is going to be a goner and with the Chargers. It's tough. Because I don't think Anthony Lynn's a bad coach, but maybe he's just not a good head coach. And I think, Nick, that's something you said not too long ago.
Well, and the ways that the Chargers have lost games this year, granted, it's kind of the typical Chargers stuff, but it's like it's late game decisions, and they're like specifically coaching decisions. It's time management, it's weird calls and how you play some of that stuff out. And I just think, and granted, again, this is typical Chargers, but it does seem like they are vastly underperforming the talent on their roster, particularly having, probably the best rookie quarterback performance this year. I mean, and yet you can't win more than a handful of games with a star-studded defense as well. It's just, I think it, he does seem like I feel like he's not a bad coach, like in kind of the general reference and things like that. He seems to be well liked and well respected throughout the league, but he may be a guy who's like a really good coordinator, but ultimately to take the next step, he's gotten promoted one time too many, and there's probably somebody who could do it better.
That Chargers rookie is the best pure passing rookie I've seen since Dan Marino. I know I'm dating
Well, he
myself.
is the best. He owns every statistical record now.
Now, you go to the coach. Now, how do you draw a cost-benefit analysis? He can't get out of his own way sometimes, but look what he did with the aforementioned. And that's just it. I don't know. If I'm Bieniemy or somebody, I'd rather go to see somebody who's already got a year under his belt with that kind of potential. And they have underperformed, but don't forget who was the king of that defense, Derwin James, right? They lost their personality completely and they've been injured. Bosa can't stay healthy either. But I just think there's something there, and I don't know if they change coaches or not. It's 6 and 1/2 dozen of the other. But Nick, the one question I got for you just quickly, not to pivot over to the Chiefs too quickly, but I was saying before you came on, you've won the last, I don't know, half dozen games by 3.7 points or whatever it is. This whole they're doing everything short of bringing in a flux capacitor or whatever that Back to the Future. That novel crap that Reed is throwing in there. Do you feel that sometimes it gets a little too novel? A lot of that stuff works, but you just straight up have more talent on offense than maybe any NFL team in history. Is it getting too much? Like, why don't they just play straight up and just outperform people based on talent? Why do they got to use all this novel stuff, I guess is what I'm asking.
Yeah, I mean, I do think, I mean, it is a lot. I mean, that some of that is just part and parcel Andy Reid. It's not changed. It's just maybe some of these things aren't working now. I mean, it's been a long kind of complaint among Chiefs fans. They tend to do that kind of stuff in the red zone, but partially because they're a finesse team that can't push defensive lines off the ball, and so they can't like, they're actually low key bad and like short yardage in the red zone because they just can't win physically, and so they have to do something weird in order to get in, because everywhere else on the field they can use space to their advantage. They can just use the field against everybody else by stretching everybody out in every direction, and so they find themselves where I think Andy Reid does outthink himself at times. With just how silly some of this stuff gets. But I honestly think some of it is just that they're kind of getting bored. And I think there's a bit of a perception that I think a lot of the national commentary is a little bit down on the Chiefs, in part just because they're almost too good to be interesting. There's only so much you can really say about them right now. And the easiest thing is to kind of nitpick, what things that have happened during their wins. And they just seem out of it a lot of the time. It's just like, and part, it doesn't affect my confidence level in them because they've just demonstrated in these last 2 years that they can win a game any which way. There is never a point they're out of a game.
I don't know if you heard previous podcasts. We talked about that because I said, frustrated. I mean, the Saints game was an anomaly with Breeze come back off the injury, but it's like, how many times did the Saints have a good athlete like Davenport or Jordan in the backfield? But when does Patrick do his magic the most, right? And that's why they're unbeatable. That's why they haven't lost in 13 months. They're just, I think they like that finesse style, and they'll do it. And now they're in a novel fashion. They're winning different ways in a finesse way. I think you hit it right on the mark.
And I think it's partially because of that leads to them having some sort of slow starts at times, because they just know in the back of their mind, like, we'll pull it out somehow. It's like they'll completely have like 3 straight like totally failed drives go down by 14 points or whatever. And it's like, yeah, but who cares? Like we'll turn it around maybe in the course of like 3 game minutes potentially. And so there's just times where they seem totally, they just seem like a sleeper board. I don't think that carries over into the playoffs, though. I mean, despite how weird all of their playoff games were last year, I do think that part of what has been led to this is it just seems like such a fait accompli. Like nothing really matters in any of these regular season games. It's whether or not the Chiefs can repeat. And I think that's when you're going to see a really motivated and a much sharper Chiefs team in the postseason. Also, I think the biggest thing that's really stymied them for stretches of some of these games is just the pressure has started to get to Mahomes more. And that's because no one talks about it because, again, the Chiefs are just, there's just not blemishes. They're not really hitting any real stumbling blocks, but they've really been injured on the offensive line. They were starting a backup guard at right tackle a week ago. I mean, it's just, but those guys are expected to come back. Mitchell Schwartz is expected back for the postseason. They're getting healthier there, and so that's going to be less of a problem. I'm not concerned about it, but it it has been at times a little frustrating as a fan. Just like, what are you guys doing sometimes?
I'll give you some props, and it's sort of the underreported good thing about the Chiefs is their defense is actually pretty solid.
It's a weird defense because they're never going to be better than mid-tier in terms of the aggregate statistics because they get run on a lot and teams move up and down the field. And partially that's because teams have to because they're trying to keep up with the Chiefs offense. And so they're never going to be in a game where both sides are just trying to run out the clock and fight for a single field goal victory. Teams know they have to play, it's like a prerequisite. You have to at least put up 30 to win against the Chiefs. Yeah. So they're getting that, but they're a really good like third down defense. And that is 100% of what they're built to do is just, sure, you're going to push us down the field a little bit, but eventually some negative play, something's going to happen. You're going to be in 3rd and long, and we have pass rushers and smart secondary players, and we can make it really difficult for you to not kill your drive, and to get those stops. And against the Chiefs offense, that's all that really matters. Literally all that matters is having a handful more possessions that result in no points for the other team because the Chiefs can score when they need to.
All right. So that will do it for all the games. We went through them all, even the ones that don't matter. For all of the super fans, boy, did we have a loaded roundtable today. For Doc, thank you all very much for listening all the way here to the end. As you know, we got those time codes and the timestamps, all that good stuff for you. We will talk to you again next week. Remember, we're here all the way through the Super Bowl, and even after the Super Bowl, we'll still be doing shows for you. Here's Kofi Annan. There you have it.
Dear friends and colleagues, saying goodbye is never easy. I believe we can all feel proud of what we have done together, and through it all, you have maintained your professionalism and commitment and remained true to the spirit of the Charter. That principle.
We go out, we hit people in the mouth.